Thanks, everybody, and I appreciate the commitment of time. Corey has family coming in tonight, so he's not going to be here. And Cassie is coming in a half an hour. They have registration going on at Ben Franklin, so she'll be joining us. Want to take an opportunity to make the announcement to the full board. Faith, I had talked to her yesterday. Susie Thomas is our new associate principal Gary's in the process of talking to Jeff Stallenwork for the CSS role so that Lynn can get the social studies position posted at North. So we have a lot to celebrate with people coming in. We're still doing a little bit of hiring. Tina, you had registration. How many new students?
Write it down.
I just got 12 today.
12 today? Oh, what? Wow. Yeah, so it's still, it's still rolling. Christian's going to send an email out to the board. We've got a 4th grade copy of Ben Franklin. We've got 8 times that we're going to be aligning there. We'll be watching numbers. And then we'll keep everybody. Yeah, so.
I heard they're starting the addition then?
Yeah, right. Yeah. Go ahead, sign that pledge. So, yep. You know, for the last couple of years, we've used this evening as the touch base on progress made and kind of set the stage for the year ahead. Joe is going to be facilitating us in a process that they use, which actually leads into part of the prioritization of KT. So this part, Joe is going to give you more context to the format tonight. We've got all of the data documents on the side. It's intentional that we're not giving them out at the beginning, okay? Because it's part of the process that they facilitate to make sure that you're brainstorming to get collectively as a group and getting perceptions and then validating it with the data as the next part of the meeting. Okay, so you'll have my scorecard scored, you'll have the working scorecards for the divisions and the buildings of where we're heading into. We still have some refinement on the scales off of the survey data and a couple of the other items. Joanna and Jeff and I are still meeting on that, and then the 4th quarter and the last quarter of the 45-day cycles. So that's really the context going into it. I'm going to turn it over to Joe, and then he's going to be doing the next portion of the facilitation.
Thank you, Pat. So my name is Joe Weitzer. I think at some point I met each of you in one context or another, or had an opportunity to work. I just want to say, what a pleasure it's been working with Menominee Falls on this journey. It's been just an incredible learning experience both for me and my team, but it's been great to celebrate the accomplishments that you've experienced over the last year, 2 years. A couple of things just in terms of housekeeping. If you feel like you need a break, raise your hand or let me know, because maybe it's time everybody does except for Gary. Gary, you don't get breaks. And that's in your contract. On the table, there's a couple of documents you just want to refer to throughout the night. This is the context of what we are about, right? So this is our vision, mission, the commitment to student excellence, the key concepts, and we'll really briefly highlight those. The scorecard, okay, an essential piece. And then we'll talk a little bit at the end of the time we have here tonight about the validity, okay, some validity tests and what we'll do with the data as we leave here tonight. Okay. Here's our agenda, and we're going to stay fairly close, although we're already a little bit behind by about a minute and a half. But that's all right. Ken did a really good job with the introduction. So talking about our objectives, the process that we reach agreement on what we're going to do and what we're about here tonight. Review some of the key concepts, the strategy alignment for what we're going to do, the process that we're going to use, and how it aligns to the scorecard. We'll do a current state analysis. This is one of the reasons we're not providing data ahead of time. What we want is free thinking. If we've provided you data, you will comment on the data. What we want is to know where we're at, what's important as we move forward. Right? So part of the process we went through last year was a SWOT analysis, and we looked at strengths, the weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. We're going to use appreciative inquiry because it aligns very nicely with the PDSA cycle, particularly in the study area, which is really where we're at. We've ended 1 year. Now it's our opportunity to study how did that process work as we move forward. Okay? And then we'll look at the validation, some key things that we may want to consider as we not only validate what we've been looking at, whether the data reflects what our intentions are moving forward, and then how do we plan for the next year. And then we'll look at summary next steps, because this is a two-part process. Part of this is laying that foundation, reflecting on what we've done well, what we'd like to do differently, as well as the KT process, which is the next time that we'll be together, and that is the problem-solving decision-making tactics that you would use throughout decision-making regarding budgets, regarding priorities, regarding other things that you may use or need. Takeaways tonight, hopefully a sense of accomplishment. And that's one of our key walkaways. You've done great work here in Menominee Falls. It's important that we recognize and celebrate that. Okay, so this is our opportunity to note what those are, and then to walk away feeling proud of the accomplishments today. Pride in being part of a good working, about being part of the good work that's being done here. I'm having conversations across the state with other school districts who are looking at you and saying, what are they doing? How are you doing this? Okay? It's a good thing to be leading the pack, and that's what you're doing. Final quarterly report and data review, and I think you'll give that out and put context around it. So you will have that as you leave tonight. Some of the work that we're doing tonight will be that validation, aligning what we're doing tonight with the data that you have as you leave. Okay? And I want to emphasize the draft of the scorecard. I had an opportunity this week to work with Pat and Jeff, and as we looked at the report cards, we're thinking, there's some misalignment here that we need to look at as we move forward. And since we are in the study phase of the first year, we need to look at and making those adjustments before we head into the next semester, which is, I think, a key initiative and a key goal of the board here tonight. All right. So, overview. So we're going to focus on appreciative inquiry. It's in a process that in many strategic planning sessions, you can go down two paths. In the SWOT analysis you did last time, when you're starting from a base and not knowing where to build forward, a SWOT analysis is a good way to look at your organization to say, what are we doing really, really well? What are the obstacles, the barriers, and the weaknesses that we need to address? Okay? Once you're on the journey, that process, while you could use it, tends to refocus people into, boy, we're always going to be having to fix. Focus more on what's going wrong. Okay? Appreciative inquiry is recognizing what's going right and how do we duplicate that, replicate it. How do we take that and use that as momentum as we move forward. So it's much more forward thinking. It allows you to plan off of the strengths of the organization. The question that oftentimes comes up as we do appreciative inquiry, well, what if we're doing something wrong? Won't that, how do we address that? Won't it come out? How do we make sure that we're not having a weakness or a threat that we're not perceiving? Actually, the appreciative inquiry methodology allows you to work beyond those. So you're not focused just in the trenches of what's going wrong, but you're putting the resources in the things that are going right and bringing those things along as part of the process. So the way that you do things here, in PDSA cycles and the mechanisms by which you're collecting data, nothing can hide. Okay? You have a weakness and you don't know about it now, then we're doing something wrong. Okay? So it's how do we propel what we're doing right, moving it forward. So strategic planning is an ongoing process. So even though we did SWOT last year, you did strategic planning, you thought you were done, you're never done. Okay? So we're going to be making adjustments potentially to the strategic plan. That's part of the process. Made great strides in the journey, and you recognize that it is a journey, okay, that we're not going to be done, and that's continuous improvement. It's the philosophy behind continuous improvement. Instead of though focusing on what's not working, we're going to be building the strengths of the organization. Okay? The weaknesses will eventually disappear or actually not become necessary to focus on. And you'll see that process, I think, tonight play out. There's opportunities to make corrections, and this, again, I want to emphasize, this is the study phase of what we've done. So over the past year, there's been a lot of great work. We have a lot of data. We have a lot of information about the direction that we're going. We've had 8 threes that really look at problem areas and threats. We've addressed many of those. Some you look at, and again, yesterday, or was it yesterday? Yesterday, when we were looking at some of the scorecards, we were wondering, why are we measuring that? Is that really what we want to be measuring? Well, that's one of the questions we're going to answer today. Are we looking at the right thing? Again, it's important to recognize and to celebrate the accomplishments that we have, and that will be what today is. I mean, it is identifying what those opportunities are for celebration, and then moving those forward. Okay? So our objectives, really to define and determine what's going right, okay, what's going well. What's most important moving forward, we don't want to spend energy on the things that aren't essential. Okay? Determine what we might do differently. So there's been starts and restarts. There's been a little bit of adjustment with 8 threes. There's been some report outs that we've kind of questioned, is that the right way we should be looking at data? So those are all opportunities in this study phase to redirect and re-engage those various systems. The rules tonight, speak freely. Okay? No judgment at the table, no judgment in the room, no bad ideas, no dumb questions. Okay? Let it just come out. Okay? Don't restrict. Keep an open mind to anything that comes out, because you're going to take every step and you're going to analyze it a little bit further. So what might come out initially as, well, that was interesting, but it's not something we need to look at. We're going to look at it. Okay? We're going to look at it in a different way. Again, keeping in mind what we're here about. Okay? So as we do the validation, this becomes even more important. If we have something that we're proud of, but it doesn't align with the district vision, mission, our goals, objectives, we have to question, why are we doing this? Right? Because there's always things that we say, that was really interesting, but what did it do for us? Right? That's part of the strategic plan, that we're not putting energy into things that are not essential to us moving in the direction that we want to go. Another document at your table, quality key concepts. This is not something that's new to you. You've seen this. They're again inside the table. Where we're focusing tonight is back here. Okay, you have the vision. We've done this one cycle through. We're back up here instead of the swap we're using in an appreciative inquiry tool or methodology. And again, your scorecard, also at the table. As we accumulate ideas or our discussions tonight, we'll actually begin to categorize those into our scorecards to ensure that we have alignment between what we want to celebrate and what we're really all about. Okay? So that's again, another method of validation. So, appreciative inquiry assumes that things are going okay. There's always an opportunity for improvement, but nothing is really broken. Okay? And we would say that in our system, that's probably true. Things are progressing. Whether the metrics are demonstrating that or not, we have key performance indicators. Some are lagging indicators, some are right out in front. We can see that students are attending. We can see enrollment rates are increasing. We can see graduation rates are increasing. Those are really readily available to us. We don't always know how what we did here affects a standard test. That's a lagging indicator. We won't know that till next year. Right? But we're going to make assumptions that the things that we're doing are effectively doing what we intended them to do, and that is improve student learning. We encourage stakeholders to look for opportunities when considering our priorities. Okay, so the stakeholders are you. Okay, it's our community, but what we're represented by is our board, leadership in the organization. Okay, so each of you have an opportunity to engage in this process. And we didn't just invite everybody. These are the people who make the decisions. These are the people who control where the organization is going. We're offering ways to replicate and magnify structure systems. So if something is going well, we want to celebrate it. If something isn't, it's probably going to come out, but it's not going to be something we're going to spend a lot of time on. We will look at it from a different perspective as to why it's not getting what we needed to get. So we have the wrong measure attached to it. Is it just not important? Does it not align with goals, district outcomes, vision, whatever it might be? Right, so the validation of things that aren't working is going to be an important step in our overall process. We won't get to that level of detail tonight. This builds on the same fundamental philosophies of the PDSA of a continuous improvement. Continuous improvement isn't looking back at what went wrong. It's looking forward to what we can do better. And we're going to strive toward agreement on key targets and initiatives. That's one of the outcomes of a strategic plan. We have a lot of minds at the table. We look at things from different lenses. Ultimately, we got to see the same thing. Okay? We've got to embrace the same vision. We're going to get into some activities right now. All right? On work. Right? This is a working session. Okay? For those of you who've been up since 5 this morning and you've had a long day, I'm just going to extend it a little bit more so that you can engage your brain. Okay? For the rest of you who've been sitting back, drinking cocktails, right? We're going to engage your brain in a different way. Okay? All right. So at your tables, you're going to work in groups. Right? But initially, I want you to think about if you had to celebrate. There were things about the district, about the year, about the people, about the process that you wanted to celebrate, that you wanted to make sure were recognized over the past year. That's what I want you to note on a single postcard. So for each idea, each celebration, each opportunity, put it on a yellow post-it. You have post-it notes at the table. There should be plenty. If you need more, let me know. Consider the people, processes, outcomes that brought value to the organization that you want to recognize. And yes, you could say, I really want to recognize Gary for this. That's okay. All right. So it can be people, processes. Okay. Single post-it note for each item. This individual. And go. So in 2 minutes, I came up with 15. Pardon? One per. Right. One per. Right. One idea per post-it. Generate as many post-its as you can individually.
Can it be like a different school, or does it have to be district-wide?
Nope. Anything that you want to recognize that happened within the school district. Okay, so it can be people, schools, processes, outcomes, measures, just the fact that we were able to do this as a community. There are school boards that do not talk to each other. And we would never do this in certain districts. Congeal school board and faculty and administrators. That's your accelerator. Are you on?
I got a whole heads of slowly from conferences. This is not the most kind. It's still prepped. I know it doesn't work. That still is. Expensive. That's like that. Is it funny? Ever in? Is that?
Well, that's okay.
You're playing. Trick mints, you can't get them out. Never one.
Some pizza, this is used to be nice.
Kevin's still on his first one. The nervous over there. Because he's an overachiever, so it's never going to be good enough.
Same big guy?
Some upgrade to Excel program.
It's all right. You can self-promote.
What do you want me to write down about finance?
Self-promotion is okay. Yes, Larry, first we're gonna, there's one more step.
2 F's, 1 N.
Yeah.
Let's touch and go for a while.
He wants my job.
All right, how many tables need another minute? Okay. Yeah, the procrastinator table back there.
Get your little kids.
You got a couple finance ones now? All right, good. Because who else is going to toot that horn, right? You have that area of expertise, you know what's going well. It's not. It's the servant.
Gary, look at the calendar and the date that we have for our business. We have a.
Okay, you can continue to add things through the evening. So we're going to move to the next step, and that is, at your tables, you need to discuss what you have. Okay, so group them if you want, or for right now, just so everybody knows at your table what's out there. Okay, what are you as a table going to potentially present? So you have the direction? Everybody needs to know what was generated by the members of your table. Okay, so Sharon, it's going to get a little bit noisy. That's okay. All right. Make sure that everybody at your table understands what we're going to tell.
Call the card and receive the cash.
Oh, you're all right. That's okay.
Facilities.
I know.
Side by side.
What is
I figured Rick was going to cover all that.
I have my means for et cetera. Means success needs and success scores. Survey, dating,
Work.
I noticed he just wrote that as we were talking.
So yeah, I heard you say that. You just saw it.
You can put a little starter if you want. Right, you can put a little starter if you want. But right now,
looking at the services that we were contracting outside.
I didn't know what environment was, but I had it.
Same thing.
Just the tuition alone was down. I figured the transportation is not happening. Balance budget over 3 years. Financial savings and utilities. Compassionate staff. Yeah, let me write that one down. I like that one too.
We know that you're going to work with staff, like coaches, like maintenance, like safe schools, pro-safe schools.
That was my first one. Services. Training deep into the art.
Well, I have, successful onboarding of a lot of new staff.
That's like, yeah,
Staff training.
Similar, but a little different.
We're talking about that.
into the organization. Yeah,
She's an incredible amount of
so I just, all right, I do that one, make it progress. I'm gonna put this one in, this is all except functional approaches, facilitating improvement.
Put Six Sigma processes. Use at every level.
Space leadership will go in that category.
Do you think that's part of step one?
That's not.
That's all it says.
I have one that started different home.
High performing work, that falls.
Closing the gap in special education.
I've got the debt savings.
Special
It hasn't been that much.
That's kind of its own, right?
Strong fund.
Right? That's what you bring to the table. That lens is.
Budget planning process,
That-
I think we have a great forward process. This is new, but last year we let put our leverage items in. Instead of just cut.
Under strong leadership.
Up and running. So I've got all going in the same.
Yeah, it's
Around the five.
I've got collaborative leadership.
Strong leadership, collaboration among leadership, there you go. I'll throw it in there.
ACT scores.
Right? Academic achievement. ACT, throw the map,
ACT,
BP,
AP tests.
that's not part of that. Maybe this is one of those, a lot of improvements in the system, but I'm impressed. I think that was under the continuous improvement. That be over there? And then, I do have increase in
Class sizes.
This was evaluation processes at MFHS.
I said teachers that are engaged in CCI.
I'll actually get with first row numbers with academic achievement. Because so creating a full understanding.
I said the maintenance, the service minded.
Educating staff, pretty general.
And there's the everybody.
That going to help me out?
I think we're going to their leaders develop.
They go under the
And they gave some closing achievement gap. Areas that the high school focused on improvements. Surveys.
Anybody, what is great work?
So I see a number of you already putting some affinity groups together.
Staff members.
Not a bad idea for the next exercise, so as you're working through.
Several schools recognize the schools of merit.
You used up all my postings for everyone.
No, I won't do that. I said the same thing in a different way, but.
I wrote 3 things on one, though. Well, you know, for information, it's like our savings.
Health insurance. I think that has some measures too, that's good.
No, I had, I had HR department.
Oh, I actually did. I was
Savings
giving
and
it a
then, value method.
Would you?
I had HR department.
So that's service.
I'll go right in there now. Perfect.
They have a budget and finance service section. Service minded, like me.
You could have people services. or you could-
And that could go with the service standards too.
You guys good?
Like I said,
Math intervention.
All right. Good? You're sorting now, right?
Well, I'm sorry.
Okay. All right, let me grab your attention just for a second.
I would way too much.
Where is that?
I got the facilities and finance.
She got the.
Let me grab your attention. All right, organizers. So next step. Next step. Okay, next step, at your table, you need to get consensus around the top 2 things you want to celebrate. Okay, the top 2 things you want to celebrate, and identify something that you think will catch the group off guard. A celebration that maybe just came out as, didn't even think about that. Okay, see if you can catch the group off guard.
So is that 3 or 1?
Three all together. Three all together. Yeah, don't group them. But it's good that you have a group because it'll help the next step.
HR, services to facilities, so generalized. What are our top two?
I would have
I think they were thinking you were about service, you know, like in fact, focus or.
I think we said it here, but top facilities. Yeah. Quality is gone up, but we've actually reduced our costs on staffing for facilities.
Where would we put discipline data?
Creative ways to say, what do you, that's our big piece. That goes in there.
We have one on
That's a big. So it's really saying that.
I think it was over here. Say probably the most amazing one you're going to
Do we want to do something? What's the athletic figure? Yeah, I put something. What are we doing?
Really can't.
Service
like the
the operation
freshman.
service levels, it's IT. When there are issues with facilities or IT,
So it's important to recognize.
something that's
So that's where I'm showing you there really nice. So I
put that positive.
Because it could have been a roadblock to
work environment. You could kind of try to get into more false pride in them.
this is a
I
big
would
change.
say that healthy is
So that for me, that's a higher level on that, that's what I'm
still
still.
capacity
Teaching away from that, can we make that statement? No,
I think it's gotta be one of our biggest successes. I would bet every hospital would
It's a good question. Is there a way to summarize it into a single statement? Is that what your question was?
but I think you're right, that's the decision.
Okay.
They're gonna stand sure they
You
go.
have your two, and then
We have one,
Yeah, I like.
you're gonna report out on them. So pull them aside so that somebody can report
sort out.
And you have your.
Do you have your two?
You get through it.
You have your two?
This is a tough step. Okay. So what's the one? All right, good.
We already have process in place.
Just get tested that.
If you can only what are they going to be? You can only celebrate two things. That doesn't mean anything more.
You can toss your 3-pointers.
Strategy here, that's good. Be careful about.
First thing you did is look to see if anyone was there. Oh, yeah. So you get a blue block, can't you?
Yeah, the ones that are easy to pick up and move around. And set them against the wall.
So you can go inside, catch your own.
Kind of a combination.
Just like a little man.
So closing the gap. And Right.
Now, my boys won their,
So we can start somewhere celebrating. You can celebrate.
That's why I put the role on you.
the guy with his team going last 3 innings.
The one that's going to catch people. Something that people say, wow, how did that get in there? But that's a really good accomplishment.
I was sitting there doing an account.
Okay, but in this time, what is what my number one
Foul
means?
ball.
I do all this business. Like what other people do.
You guys are rocking. This is clean. This is completely accurate. This table doesn't good discussion. No activate. Do you have your two? Hey, you have to go
Oh, I got
That's my part.
Did you send me the form?
No, I did not.
I just sent you a list. And you'll forget all that. So you have your 2 and 1. I'll let you go last. That's all the
Okay, let's start bringing this together and let's put a report out. And there's been some great conversations. There's some democratic things going on here where people are voting. That's good. There's conversations of convincing. So there's really interesting dynamics. And then we have this achieving group that just decides this is how it's going to be and they just move forward. So this is great. I think there's been some, just in the conversations I've overheard, great dynamics. Let's see what we've got. All right, so this table here, give us the 2 that you've chosen as the 2 big celebrations you'd like to hold. Your top 2.
So the first one is academically, making gains and closing the achievement gap, as well as many of the subgroup gains and test scores.
Okay.
And the second one was teachers becoming passionate about data-driven decisions.
Great.
And the surprise one is good partnerships between teachers, district leadership, and the board, healthy dialogues on key issues of the future of the district.
Hey, that's.
Okay, we're done.
Who else would have? Who else has something like that last one about the relationship between the key? Right? Is that not something we want to continue to encourage? Right. So how do we get a metric around that? All right, so this is planting the seeds as we're moving forward. We wouldn't want to lose that, right? So how do we ensure that it is maintained? Something that we don't obviously score on the scorecard, but maybe it's a measure that we should capture somehow. Because if it's not measured, what happens? You lose it, you don't do it. So it's not important. Okay. Gary, your table have a report up?
We do. We have a couple of things.
Okay.
The first one we put down was the capacity of staff to provide quality learning environments. So looking not only at the training, professional staff development we do, so the skills, they've got the skill as well as the will, and just that strong positive culture go along with it. So encompassing all that in the capacity of the staff.
Okay.
Go through the
Did you
learning
write that?
environment.
Who wrote that? The skill as well as.
Wow, did that came from our finance?
Square.
I may have borrowed that from somewhere.
Okay.
Skill plus will. And then the second one we have is operations and service, support services, provide incredible personalized service. We take a look at IT, maintenance operations, and just the improvements we've made there
Excellent.
over the last couple of years. And then the one that we thought no one would put down is Jeff Nennig is really nice. That was my idea, Jeff, but the group decided on this.
Couldn't agree to that. Couldn't agree to that.
Here's what the group decided on: creative ways to save money while keeping programs and adding value.
Good. All right, creative ways to save money. Very good. All right.
You can tell we have a lot of operations folks here.
Who else had something related to that? Saving money, creative ways of saving money. All right. So where is that in the scorecard? Have you thought about where that would
Yes,
normally-
finance.
In finance? Okay. Good. Group back here.
All right, one of ours was building capacity of leadership within the district, which has really led to our added certification, our PBIS scores increasing, our first annual boot camp going well, more national certified teachers promoting teachers again.
Well, Virginia, we got everything there.
That's
12 things. That's a principle of just following your kids.
Just so I can say, this is. Okay, the second one, I'll just say very briefly, ACT, WKCE, and ACT, WKCE, and exceeding expectations, like the schools, like our scores have all gone up.
Okay, good. All right.
And then the one that we weren't expecting, instead of just saying Jeff Nenning was nice, Scott said great leaders with great attitudes, but then we actually said the one very similar to yours, that the real one was that the health insurance and saving benefits, saving money and help people.
Okay, good. Interesting. All right, let's go with this group here. Our achievement-driven group.
Well, we put a couple here, but we're not going to read all of them. Follow directions. So teamwork
Compliance.
is our big one, and that goes with all divisions throughout the whole. And then leadership, starting down at the top and working its way through the divisions. And then the AHA is we hosted 2 visits to show off our accomplishments.
Okay, good. That's very good. Want to share?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
So we talked about significant growth in student performance across the district and in all areas. And also transition with our compensation plan and the, recognizing diversity in performance in people and how that has come a long way. That's outside, I would say, for sure. And then our aha, and it's an aha because I wrote it, Pat did not write it. Accepting feedback as a gift.
And she's promised that to me tonight. All right, next up. Some of you have already done some sorting. I want you to put those up in the appropriate scorecard area. And it is okay at this point if you have something that you're not sure where it fits to put it in the other. Because part of this is the discovery of what doesn't fit within our existing scorecard. So, take your Post-it notes. There's two parts to this.
You
Once-
only posted the three?
No, the whole, because what we want to do is we want to appreciate all of the things that we've done, okay? So, while you're doing this, you can also get up, move around, take a break if you need to, or you come back and then we're going to give you an assignment with the dots.
So we're putting all of them on the just that? Just to highlight, no,
What you're missing is the conversation. Make sure that when you're posting them up, people can read them because they will score certain ones in a minute. So if they're overlapping, we're not going to be able to read them. If you need tape, I brought tape if you use up the sticky part of the post.
One part of doing some construction jobs, I was talking to Rick today, see the siding, 40%. They're going to load up my guys on Thursday during the day, pull that nice baby, get it done. Incredible.
I have tape if you're having trouble getting the stick. Over these. Thank you.
First wrestling school, at video, graduated in 81. No, sorry, third time we're going to ask. Shot Dave down the first time. Dave came back the next year and said yes about a month before the induction. He back down. So, this was how it was. And I'd met him before. Funny story is, with another person that I knew, I said, hey, meet this Pat Hale. And he goes, Pat? Well, you my friend Ryan. So like, I said, this is him? It was crazy. But so I knocked on his door. Pat, wrestling's never been more popular at our school. Yeah. We need you this year. No. You got it. Amazing. I said, promise me you'll have it back out. It was a promise. Right now. 34 pounds. And actually, our wrestlers found a clip of it. They saw the state championship match on YouTube. So somebody cares.
It's
business, it's marketing.
All the Post-its up? All right.
Is it 138?
All right, so this next step is going to take a little time. So what I want to do is introduce you to a couple things. Out in the hallway, Jeff, you want to introduce what's out in the hallway?
Yeah, out in the hallway is some data right behind this wall. You'll see we got some trend data on the metrics. So you can look at the pillars, you can see some of the data that we have posted. The idea is as we continue to develop metrics, we'll be having, of course, the trending for past years. We don't have all back years, but we got some. You'll see it, and any feedback you have, I'll be glad to listen.
Okay, so that's one piece that's going to happen because this is going to get crowded up here as we're going to be putting dots up. I initially planned to have, I think it was 6 or 8 tables. And so what I designed was, you're going to take 3 dots and post them to the 3 most important, or to you, the things that you want to celebrate most in the context up here of your, and it's interesting that we got all of them up on our 5 areas, our scorecard. Take twice as many dots. Take 6, so we get some diversity in the dots. Otherwise, we're going to get a lot of Post-it notes with just 1 dot. We need actually a couple of these to come out as high rating. Okay. So you're going to go through the Post-its, put a dot by the ones that you think, yeah, these are things that, as a team, we ought to really be discussing and carrying forward. Okay, so not a one-time event, but something that we want to make sure that we perpetuate over time. All right, so you're going to take 6 dots. You can put your dot on any group Post-it notes or any Post-it note. And in this time, since it will get crowded up there, check out the dashboards that are hanging up. We'll give about 10 minutes. We'll come back here and let's say 10 after 7. Right? We'll take a look at where we're at and then do the next step. I got my dot. I'm my dot.
6 dots on the
Yes, you're right. Okay. 6 dots.
Oh, it's so slow.
That you want it, so we're looking to perpetuate. We don't want it to go away. We want to celebrate it and keep it going. Different way. So it takes a while to read through these. No fear putting the dot just on you. Okay, we're going to keep you anyway.
Somebody sat next to me.
You gotta kind of work for it. Before you're
Okay, so you're just putting it on there. Okay.
Already.
I would. You know.
I'm going to take a whole sheet.
Our whole table did.
That's all right. She's from Chicago. We're going early and often. It's okay. We make allowances.
I am a flatliner. I'm from Chicago. That's right. I can straight up
Here's some tape for those that are falling off. I think we probably want
Joe, you need any sound tonight for your presentation?
No, actually, you
You're not shut that off?
There's a little buzziness. I walked around.
I got lots of dots.
A bonus dot.
Like a prime number shows up.
Well, maybe you could buy a dot from someone.
Break the die after connections, then drop a die. Yeah.
That's right. Well, no, winter center, so drop it out. Blue dots, how's that?
Yeah, we're getting about.
Out of doubt. 6 dots down.
Good look at the data wall now, Jim.
We're getting some grouping, we're getting some, yes, that's good.
Trying to see if you're gonna say anything.
I was actually gonna say something like different from the size of them.
Right.
That threw me off.
Well, one says, but I still
I initially thought he was traveling and he had a company. Three hours. Okay. 3 positions.
No, one position. Yeah, I sure can. I'm trying to.
Yeah, we see.
Rob, if I was looking at it, were you looking over to see it, or were you looking over to see it? Just kidding.
Right. But it's all health classes except for one, so it's one. Where
well, they're in the cooler, they're the ones but it's still in the box.
Unless Anderson and Brad rated all the boxes.
The way I look at it is workouts like
calling us out. Here.
and life isn't complete without cookies.
Extra lunch boxes of their cookies.
Oh, there's something that just says, I don't know why.
I think they discounted.
Mitch, we gotta call back.
Hey, you should change this 7-6.
Yeah, might as well.
Feel the tread marks on my back.
Somebody who just wants a sandwich.
It's on tape. It's on tape.
I'll be here all day and all night. I'll leave. Did you go anywhere this
Like, oh, no. I don't think that should have ended up back in the.
Oh, you've never done it
I stayed all day for this one. They're cool in the middle, freezing cold. They drain it every night. They put cold water in it every morning. Freezing cold, clouds came out, started to chill out, chill a little bit, and had a lot of tickets.
Although I try to really avoid.
We went up last night. It was like 89. It was a miserable day, but it was still so hot.
Yeah, we used to go on Friday. Yeah, I remember some of the rides that they ride on.
I love the historical markers. Yeah. Even what year they first put in and then what year they used to
Yeah, I remember that stuff. Some of the stuff.
It was a good experience.
Soft serve ice cream. I think I'd rather expensive.
For like $1. Like,
I know.
Kids love that.
oh, that's cool. So that was exciting. Last week, we went to Minneapolis. Best part of the trip was just the kids were I have a little boy, and he spent 2 weeks up to my knee. Now he's 6'9", 330, starting off as a tackle. But Jonah, I give him a lot of credit because obviously he's talented in football, starting center in basketball, pitcher for baseball. He can move his body. Obviously he didn't go, but his dad was there, so I talked to him. And it's funny because the Star Tribune's a big Minneapolis paper.
You turn the corner and it's like.
The reason why I went in there, everybody's got one. He drove down. He drove down because I was saying robberies. They had an article about Jonah and then the quarterback, their roommate. And they got to know each other because it's right. And at one point, my former teacher coach had met this other that's Gary's quarterback. Oh, it'll be great spot. And then it was in the paper. My coach named Parker, the quarterback called him and said, "Hey, Steve, I hope you feel better." You know, it's a really nice relationship, but it was pretty cool. He didn't teach for me. Standing at the 50-yard line. I got it's one-on-one.
When someone comes near the house. Are you right by Jeff Thompson? Yep, right across the street.
So he was who's this? Head coach of the Gold State.
Yeah, there's.
So we sat and talked.
All right.
Are we? It was like surreal.
You're out to do questions.
What do you think? They're all pretty interesting.
I have 4.
Good stuff. You know what? It is. Let's get the feedback so we know what we're looking at and we're giving you what you need. So rather than print 1,000 copies.
I know you can do it.
I'm not really sure.
All right. So we have a number of items that kind of rate a little bit higher. than others. Got significant dots. I'm going to go through those, and then I'm going to give you your table assignment, your first round of table assignment. So we have dollar savings in the district. Okay, and the only thing on this and this caveat is the finance guide. You can't do anything in finance or budget. Okay, so you got to get outside the box. All right. The other is the process. So one is the outcome, one is the process, the budget process, things like that. All right. So those two are items that, as a table, you could take either or, except for that table back there. In the health and safety area, we have schools are safe is a theme. All right. Schools are safe. The other is several schools recognize Menominee Falls as a leader. Okay, so that those two themes came out. Right, so as a table, you can choose those. Next one down, we have a staff development theme here going on. So that is a theme you can choose. Great leaders, great attitudes. This is all about the collaborative leadership theme. Okay. In the service area, we have operations, support services provided. All right, Gary, this looks like you're ready. Needed personalized service. Okay, that is a single area. And preparing students to be college and career ready is another area. Okay, even though it's only one, so it's okay. We have teachers becoming data-driven. Let's see. Teachers becoming passionate about data-driven decisions. We have ACT scores, okay, as a group, and whatever it is, closing the gap, education gap. As a table, select one of these as a group. You know, you can come up here, grab the Post-it, come back to your table, and then I'll give you your next set of instructions. Okay, before they all fall down. Come on up. So you can feel free to come up, choose the one you want. You only need one at this point. You're going to do this twice. You're going to do this twice. So choose one you want to work on right now, and then you can choose the finance. Ready, go. Box them out, Gary. Box them out. Use those elbows. It's okay. Trust me, choose one you're not comfortable with. Next time I'm going to do the blindfold, I'm going to go up.
The elbows are lower in the ribs.
Okay, so now we're to the serious part of the
It's true.
Okay, we're to the serious part of the equation. This is where we're really going to be thinking about what caused this. Right? What are some of the root causes that may have led to this? Now, first thing we need to do is make sure that we can define what it is that we're looking at. Right? We need a common understanding of what it is that we're looking at. What are we celebrating? Just if we say ACT scores, what about them? Right? It's not enough. Right? So define what it is that you're looking at before we can move forward. Next step. Okay. Part one, generate the ideas. Generate as many insights. Develop explanations regarding why this success occurred. You may know, or you may think you know, but I want you, when you think you know, ask what else? What else? What else? What else? Okay? Not enough to have one thing, or two things, or three things. I'm going to eliminate two of those. All right? So you need to have a deeper understanding of what might be some of the root causes. This group here actually was on the right path. Right? This causes this, causes this, causes this, so this is the one we want to talk about. Okay, this is how we selected our number ones. And they got to agreement because they understood that's the outcome that we were looking for. What are those things that cause that to occur? Because the causes are the things we want to replicate. If we replicate those, we'll get a similar result. This is all about replication of good practice, good outcomes. Same time, we're going to say, you know what, that was something we did, but it may not have had an effect. Right? That will come out of this process as well. All right? So we're going to start here, then we're going to exchange your successes and the list that you generated with another table. So we'll just go around the room by one. All right? So whatever you generate here, you're going to pass on, they're going to critique it, and they're going to add to it. All right? So we want a very robust list. Questions? Questions about the process? What's the first step we're going to do? Define it, okay? Make sure that you have a clear understanding of what it is, because when you pass it on, if it's not clear to the next group, they're going to start generating a whole other list of ideas. Okay, so you need to clearly define what it is that we're celebrating. Okay? I'll check in about 8 minutes, 10 minutes, and we'll see where we're at.
Do you want these done electronically? And
No, actually, I think you said, what are we writing on? Where's the paper? That's right, we need paper. You already jump-started that. We grabbed some paper. You're going to just generate your ideas right on the sheet with the definition right at the top.
Hold on 20%.
Don't feel restricted to the table if you want to hang your sheet on the wall and write from a group, group stand.
We're going to be a group that goes against the norm. We're going to do it.
There should be a black pen on the
We're hoping to actually use a smart board.
Oh, there you go.
So we can send it all to one person.
Somebody else thinks it's
Close that like that, shape it.
Could I have used it? When I did the PowerPoint today,
It's not perfect.
I could have tapped on it.
Well, yeah. She accidentally did it before. As long as you got the smell. As long as you got the smell.
They're on Gary.
Very good, define it.
If you are comfortable with that technology, and save some scripting later, so feel free to do that if you want to use it that way. I was thinking you're writing on there, we're just going to go around the paper trail. So,
Why do we think that's what they're saying? Why do we think this one?
We'll do it. Just put the chair. Everyone's sorry. It's
With the humor that you have, Cassie,
Did you start right?
Don't let down. You got it. So you cannot write. Oh, she's great.
Oh, she's the best.
She's the girl. And she wants to
See, Captain Stereotype. Thank you, Joe. No, I didn't. I forgot my. You said you like to be controlled. Everything is perfect. You know what I was like? So it's like, they give you a bucket, I see snow cones for
let's see.
So what do you think has the longest line? All the kids are like, I'm going to do the tiger's blood. I'm like, really? I would give a guy, really? He's like, he wants to do this. I'm like,
Yeah, that's tiger.
Why? So this is our what we've done to make these things strong. So everything in white, black, Hispanic against white.
This is what you get when you ask me to write.
Pretty, I like it.
Thanks, Kevin.
Can't believe it's that.
Okay, so.
So why?
Why do we have strong collaboration?
What factors contribute to it?
Our experience and students.
Pathways for feedback.
Open feedback too.
I'm in feedback.
Looking
Open feedback, like feedback.
Elementary teacher.
amazing, isn't it? It didn't last long. Thanks for coming down as principal.
Thank God for smart
But you don't like. Sometimes you get gifts that you love. Sometimes you get considering
Expectations.
I apologize to kids called me out. Someone said, "What's my mom says you have bad handwriting." Your mom is right.
Because it's, yeah, it's like really, you know, you gotta reward for somebody to stand and hope that's an expectation.
Leave me alone, Matt.
It's teaching. It's a mindset that we have to teach.
The iron. I think a lot of it has to do with personality. I mean, that's not anything you can do, but I also think that, I mean, besides Old Man Jeff, everybody is relatively new in the last couple of years. I don't mean you're old, but you're
That's right, you're trying.
We're asking them to do it.
I just want to put it out there.
senior member. This the last couple of years.
Senior team member been the longest?
They actually, they're empowered to actually take the
I guess I think by that goes if you've got people who've been there for a long time, people that come and fairly fresh here, that I think they have to
I think some of it goes along with it too, is the open to feedback, and what you're saying is open to change. So if you're gonna be collaborative, you have to be open and willing to change, and just kind of, almost like, I think what I hear you saying too is a little bit of a, like if you're kind of, like you have to, try risks, to risk trying new things, to like get the payoff in the end.
Just give me a couple good words, I'll put it down.
Come on, square. Yeah.
It's a new style compared to 7 years ago.
A lot of us didn't know that because we're around.
I mean, it was more of a top-down before.
It was very much a weekday focus.
Yeah.
Rather than a week. Are you thinking the French week?
I was thinking of
So leadership is a power. Power to make decisions.
What about positivity? Partnership. I mean, don't you, like if you have somebody who's, if you're negative all the time, that seems to shut down collaboration. Whereas if you're positive and trying to find solutions instead of blaming.
So people's personalities generally positive. Personality isn't something you can necessarily replicate. I think that's a big factor.
And I think along with that, there's a willingness to teach. So when ideas are generated, because now we can't.
That's what I was trying to say.
There's really not, we've eliminated that.
So to put it in those positive, what you have, you don't have to can't do, you have to remember, we're wanting to celebrate the positive. We're all the positive.
It's not gonna work.
Square.
How important is it to have stability in the leadership and vision in order to collaboration?
I'd like to say important, but then again, I just said that a lot of us, we're relatively new as a leadership team, so we don't necessarily have a lot of longevity and stability at this point.
Do you know which way you're headed? So clear, shared focus direction.
In order.
Yes. Different things. Because
So we'll go by.
some come out and train established measurement. We've done the communication and places recognized.
That's it. You're all new, but none of you are.
Really,
innovation.
I'm those like horrible when the kids try to
Drives me crazy. Square at me hates that we're not arriving. Big fan of the destination.
Already arrived.
Yeah. I'm a big fan.
We're just impatient.
Good job to the graduation
There is no arriving square. Did you not hear that today?
We will never arrive.
We will always be committed to it.
Come on, Square.
From WCTC, who's at the CI boot camp. He's a new coach for WCTC. I don't know if you guys know.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely have a chance to talk about the difference between our culture and Japanese culture.
All right, with your list right now, I want you to pass it one table that way, clockwise. Okay, one table clockwise.
And nobody's perfect.
Don't worry if you're not done with your list. That group is empowered to
It's
complete.
practice makes perfect. They don't practicing to get there. You never reach
It's all thinking outside the box.
Making me dizzy trying to read that.
And I thought Mike Corey was hilarious. I was going to talk about how I've been.
We're supposed to add.
You need another sheet? You want another sheet?
Why do we have?
I was like, we're both a little pompous. I was like,
Aerial thoughts.
I was surprised.
You have signs.
So make sure you understand what the so where's the definition of this? Is that the definition? What does that mean? What does that mean? Say for what?
Well, I think it's just all stakeholders, because you gotta think about it,
All
parents,
stakeholders.
community members,
So
I mean,
let's refine their definition. Let's help this group out. They didn't follow directions.
We do not need
Well, the very first thing is you have to define it so that.
We did define it, we just didn't write it.
I did my homework. I didn't know you were going to
What's your priority? Safe schools.
Come on.
Did we help the okay, you're still working on the definition? Don't let it slow you down. If you're So you can half the time that you did on the first round. So if you're going to make additions, make them.
Depends on what the word is.
So fine now that
What is that? Why don't we just do this?
There goes our budget.
Both physically and emotionally.
School environment
And a clean office.
encourages.
Safe schools. I think we understand.
Physical and emotional.
I just think there's
Thank
culture
you.
that we're talking
So that's
about.
because
Not just the whole police
it's-
department lockdown stuff, but, you know, behavior and.
That's the most important part.
Yes.
I mean, most behaviors I don't think are talk about behaviors and safety, most behaviors don't really impact physical safety. But I don't know emotional safety about wanting to be at school.
What about like with safe schools, even, I mean, if they like precautionary practices and stuff like that, so all kids feel like that sense of belonging, and I miss the first thing. But I mean, does that help add to that emotional safety or
It's an added element.
yeah. I mean, you don't have that sense of isolation, and I think that makes parents sometimes feel safer sending their kids to school.
That's where activities are so important.
I don't know, even if it, inclusive is just least restrictive.
Yeah.
Defining together. But I'm even thinking too, like, safe learning. If I'm nowhere near Brandon's bag, I know I'm gonna get help where I'm at, Brandon's gonna get help with his bag. Someday I can't. And so I just, you know what I mean? Like, we have systems in place that help meet our learners, not expect our learners.
I don't think I can put into written word what you just said.
Yeah, I get it.
Environments where we meet children and not expect children to meet us. Would that make sense, or is that not clear?
Right on the bottom, I think how you said it is good. Just add that thing because I wanted to come out with
VIRN.
Oh, and so you're just trying to get this get out of the environment.
Are your learning environments non-threatening?
Well, we got so many conversions.
So kids can't identify each other on their on the data, but they can help each other grow, right? So it's non-threatening that I happen to be below the line, but nobody else knows it. So it's non-threatening, it engages me in the learning process, right? So that would be a form of safety. If we labeled every kid where they were, I'm always going to, I'm done learning. Exactly.
I mean, I know.
So when you define it differently, so say you broaden it, so you should look at it differently.
We're there yet. I think narrow the gap, but we need to be more culturally responsive, but I don't know if we're there yet. And building new environments.
Non-threatening.
Ready?
Whatever! This is not a non-threatening environment. I am stressed out because I can't spell. Safety and that was very simple.
You're doing a good job.
All right, boys. Thank you.
I will freely.
Wait, what did you say?
Safety. It's okay to fail, it's the learning process.
Okay, as you get to the end, think one more time. What else? What else?
Hopefully the teachers.
You were a minimalist over here.
I don't know if it's quite
All right, at your table, remember that this is your house. You have to identify the top two things that you think contributed to the success of that thing as it was defined. All right, so one more time, identify the top two factors that you believe contributed most to the success of the item that was defined. All right, so in this case, you're looking at subgroup, the closing of the gap. What are the two things that you think contributed most to the success that you experienced here in the district? All right, so you have safe environments over there. What contributed most to creating a safe environment so that we can celebrate those things? Don't read on and turn to part 3. Contributed most.
I think the focus on improvement as well. So this idea.
Yeah, whether that's active, I don't know. I think behavior, I think we also need to hit the learning environment.
I just, yeah, because I was thinking like the common expectations, that also like, that's the problem with personalities. Why we did it together, is common expectations. So is that your resources? I agree with Brad too, like with that active learning environment.
That's where you like that's where
Active learning environment. So those two.
What if we say process? Because it's really focusing on the process.
Those are the things that.
So just do we start then? I mean, does everybody feel good about that, or is that? We only get 2. I mean, there's no under, but I mean. Yeah.
I have no judgment. We know that you know.
I mean, it really can think about this is RTI.
Kids taking ownership of the learning, and that's self-assessment.
What is this? Is this a
Restorative practices that, so like if,
Talking about the data.
like if I would steal from you, instead of just me getting a suspension being done with being done, it's almost like the victim impact thing. I like have to go back to you and talk through it, and you have to tell me like how that stole from you, so it's.
Okay,
So like a kid who broke.
You have your 2 items?
Yes.
You have your 2 items?
Yeah.
We do. Okay, thank you. And this group here, do you have your 2?
I've tried to instill
You have your 2 items?
He's always like, stop it.
All right, now, here's where the fun part starts. It was always so, the 2 items that you selected, okay, the 2 items, listen up. All right, group back here. The 2 items that you selected are no longer available to you. For whatever reason, they're removed from the opportunity to create this success. These are still an important success. We identified and agreed that these are important to us. How do we innovate differently to ensure that we still get the end result? You cannot do these 2. All right? So the 2 that you've identified as having contributed most to your success, how will you replicate success if those 2 options are no longer available? So why would we do that? One is to make us think differently about the way that we do things, to validate that what we're doing is the right thing. Okay? The second is, sometimes we're doing something because we've always done it. And what we're looking for is, what other things are we missing if that thing wasn't there? Okay? So we're going to remove that intentionally to get us to think a little bit deeper. All right? So this is where you're going to have to, and you're going to come up with, in order to get this thing to work, we want to invest here. What is it that we would do differently? Okay? You cannot use the 2 things that you identified as having the greatest impact on the success. This may mean you're adding a new thing to the list. It might mean you're changing the scorecard item.
Well, this is.
It could be that something else needs some additional support in order for it to get you the success you're looking
What if we
for.
didn't have an active learning environment? I mean.
Let me throw a couple things. What comes to my mind, safe school, safe learning environment. Okay, what if we do?
You should define this first. Right.
I'm even
All right, so now, you have an opportunity because they did define it for you. So the question is,
the students are
how could we define this to still get a success in our pyramid, right, or in our scorecards, how can we get a success, knowing that we can't do those three things? What could we do differently? One thing is, we should change the definition of what we're looking at, right?
up to them.
We could say, you know what, maybe we're not going to go here, we're going to go in a different direction. We could also
as a child, as a
something else in
learner,
that.
to determine student success, to determine your own.
So that would mirror kind of like what we were talking about. I know I'm talking about this, where like an elementary building blocks of leadership. So you don't have a kindergarten, you just, everybody goes, in the morning we're going to read it, you're good.
So think of it this way, you have leaders at every
And you
level.
have kindergarten, fifth graders
Can a
together.
custodian not lead their, okay, so I think strong collaborative leadership works, it's just defined across.
So that's what comes to now we're breaking down what does it mean to be a student? Because our current model.
So what can we do to ensure that we continue to have strong collaborative leadership? If we
Here's my
were
question.
to remove.
Do we feel confident that everybody feels?
No more risk, gotta stay tight to the.
Because I feel like I really like that. I think you were saying that. I feel like that's such a teaching.
So if we created that environment, it would
All
be very
stakeholders feel
easy.
like physically, our buildings are safe, it happens in this.
So how do you ensure if this
You know, like,
I mean, we have high scores in that place, but it would be wrong to say every kid and every parent feel like their kid or they are physically emotionally. What Joyce mentioned too about is the learning and knowing where kids are on there. And that for the most part, yeah, but you know there are several kids in the school who know exactly where their sticker is, and they feel horrible about it, and they're afraid that everybody else knows where their sticker is.
So if I had more ownership in the learning pathways I'm undertaking, whether that's using computer-based, whether that's doing one-on-one, small group, whatever it may be, don't you think that leads to greater physical safety for students? Because I'm taking
One idea?
ownership and control.
Yes, at least one. If you have more,
So there's that emotional safety, there's that physical safety, because the student now is taking ownership and invested.
A really good conversation.
It is, we had really good conversation.
I think that's true, but I think you also begins to have some of that personalized
Situation, so safe schools, what did you remember, common expectations, okay?
people.
You know what? All right, so how do you, in those two things that contributed most, how do you replicate without specifically saying your part? How do you get that to somehow come out?
That's the thing.
You make the child build a relationship, and then they feel safe.
See, and that's what I was thinking too, right? It's like,
Well, then you
You'd be working with a counselor, advisor.
Right, your idea, you're gonna verbalize it, so you're gonna get your, it isn't gonna be perfect, it's gonna be squishy, it's not gonna feel. All right, it could be straight. But it is, maybe there's another approach, maybe there's a new, we're in a different school.
that's, I wish we had.
I haven't.
So when you originally trained, and they go and they train the
Did you come up with something? So how many of the three that you
How can I
selected,
capture
and
this,
this
like
is part of this
individualized
process,
learning
of the three that you selected, could you really implement?
Personalized learning.
But that's what I'm saying, is of the ones that you now just came up with,
I think it's just
could you implement? Would they be fairly easy to implement?
take it. No.
But you could, with a little structure.
Are you saying more?
Perhaps a new path, a new opportunity to say.
Well, I think we're develop a relationship, personalized learning.
All we need to do is get some
Feel
safe
safe because they got friends. They feel like
So personalized learning.
Via gamification. Serious. Because
something that you have been
iPads,
or spotty, or now you're articulating it in a different way?
I think we're just more strategic
Teaching the math
Okay.
skills, but
Good.
you're giving
about how we would address
your
it.
game.
Like, you know, like here we're focusing on common expectations. Here, we're doing the active learning. This is really the why of why. So like we did the what before the why, and now we're defining the why.
It's the evolution.
We'll talk about that.
Go to the place,
Good enough. How do we do?
If you want to just, it's got to be with every kid.
So there was a need to define or redefine, okay? Does that mean,
Not just so.
into
add a little bit more, she said 90% isn't good enough.
Does it give you
Personalized learning.
Yeah, and just shooting it off the line. That's all I heard. You're right. You're right.
What doesn't
I enjoyed Oregon Trail.
Mitch, your table, we're going to start. Gary, you're a disruptor. What did we find? First of all, what was your definition? What did you remove? That's the top two things. And then what are you thinking about as a strategy to ensure that this stays at the forefront of success?
Closing the gap is the outcome.
So stand up. Stand up.
It's a little hard to read.
Our definition of how subgroup perform compared to the comparison group.
Okay, so closing the gap issue.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
And the top two that we plucked out was response to intervention and continuous classroom improvement process.
Okay.
And once we got rid of Pat, you'll see what we can hear with CCI is going. We added culturally responsive practices, teaching study skills, habits of mind to students and families, metacognition.
What was that? Habit of mind.
Habits
Like the habits of mind of a strong learner.
Yeah.
So you're teaching students what that feels like, kind of like, yeah. More so than just study schools without all of them things.
individualized learning plans, and teaching via gamification.
Okay. So what was the question I asked you when I came to your table?
iPad software, making education fun.
Could you implement these things? Easy. And would it have an impact? Would it have a positive impact? All right. Is there a reason we're not doing it now? Well, can't afford the games. Okay. You shifted your focus, right? You shifted your focus to see, well, what other opportunities are out there? If we kept the opportunities there, there's no need to change. Right? We've gotten the success. The question is, we're on a continuous improvement journey. So it's not good enough to rest on what we've done. We've got to be looking also for the next opportunity. All right. So we're still founded soundly in our process, PDSAs, the whole bit. But now we're looking at how do we expand that. Who's your reporter over?
Brad Kessler.
Thanks, Cassie.
All right. So your topic and definition.
Our topic was safe schools, and we didn't do a ton to refine the definition except to add physical and emotional so that we saw those both sides to safety.
Perfect.
And then our top two were common expectations through PBIS, and then active learning environment with the focus on growth and improvement.
Okay.
So if we lost those, well, the first one is a set of expectations you could lose. The other one is a little bit more philosophical, so that was kind of tough. But so we broke the rules or bent them a little bit. So then what we, I guess, Again, because a lot of this is, I don't know, they're not a lot of programs or strategies. They're more, I don't know, philosophy. Are you regretting picking these?
No, you're doing a great job.
So then what we put is personalized learning and caring relationships with every child, and just focusing on that, so that kids are safe both emotionally and safe to take risks and fail in the learning process.
Perfect. So the nice thing about that is you basically are doing that now, but now you can shift the focus because you recognize that as a possibility to accelerate what you're currently doing. So you have the process and philosophy, but now here's a new strategy or approach. A nice opportunity for a quick PDSA to see if there's an impact, right? You'd think it would. You'd think it would have an impact, right? So how would we measure that once we implement it? And it isn't something that's across the system, so it is an innovation. The approach.
Okay, we inherited strong collaborative leadership, and after kvetching about there being a lack of definition.
You can't define simple words.
You can't define simple words. Even lacking the definition, we did come up with some ideas. So, and actually our top two came out of our own ideas.
What happened to our collaboration?
Our top two ended up being encouraging a risk-taking environment.
Thanks for being encouraging.
You needed more risk. Right. And transparent/immersive leadership and collaboration. And obviously we lost those two. So after we lost those two, we decided to go back and redefine or define strong collaborative leadership. And what we decided on was essentially, some of us were thinking leadership as a leadership team. Some of us were thinking teacher leaders. And, after some discussion, there's leadership at all levels, all divisions, all levels. So we defined strong collaborative leadership or a strong collaborative leader as people at any level of our organization that have a clear shared vision and direction, a growth mindset, that value leadership development or training, which creates capacity, and that value data-driven feedback and change. And given that definition, one of the things that we thought was a next strong point to focus in on was strong hiring combined with upper out expectations.
I really like the definition. I like the refinement. Not that yours wasn't.
I thought it was strong to start.
But the clarity of leadership throughout an organization, right? So it implies succession already, right? One of the things that you want to make sure that we do as an organization is not have this great kickoff, start, progression, and then stop. And then everything starts to trickle off. You've got to be continuously improving, but it's improving at every level and making sure you can support it as people move on, move out. Okay? So very good. Nice job. And what do we have over here?
Prepare students for life after high school, four-year technical, military, and career. The top two originally on how we got there was the aligned curriculum to the ACT standards, and middle and high school aligned around career clusters. The next steps we saw as the student goal setting, the career portfolios, and more aligned shadowing work experience to projects and co-curricular.
So obviously we're not going to remove your top two, right? We know that those things have had success. Did we pick up anything so far? And we have one more group to go, but did we pick up anything so far that was, hadn't thought about that? Or is this an area we want to invest further in, or at least investigate to further accelerate that opportunity as a celebration? Right? I'm seeing that's not. Forcing you to go a step beyond, removing some of the possibilities, helps to foster some of that growth opportunity. So here's our last group. This is the activator group.
Well, it was a really broad sheet of paper, and we were very confused as to what.
Okay. This is the strong collaborative leadership we were talking about.
But they did take a risk.
We disappointed. This one was schools recognized for strong design and infrastructure to improve climate for learning, PBIS, distinction and merit. So So the two that we thought we could take out were clear protocols for behavior expectations, and then because of the broadness, we added one, followed through by all staff with consistency.
Okay.
And then this is an ongoing issue, or not an issue, but an area in our district that if you look at the elementary school, it's further along. Middle school's a little bit further. The high school is kind of in its infant stages right now. So we want to add some different points to make sure that we drive home at the high school level to try and catch up with other levels.
How do we accelerate that? All right.
We thought that we need to make sure that there's a clear understanding, the purpose for purposeful, strong training, and clear data process, and then celebrating the progress that we make through data throughout the organization. Very good.
How easy will that be to implement? You have good data already, right?
I think the more data, and again, I'm being more specific with the high school, the more data that our high school sees, the easier it will be to keep gradually improving. And we have to make sure that it's continuous. It just can't be a one-shot deal. So we got to make sure it's continuous.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I think you deserve an applause. Some new opportunities, I think, to think about as you're doing your strategic planning at every level of the organization. I'm challenged here because I know I'm standing between you and leaving, but we have another 4 that I'd like to go through. But we won't do the table rotation, okay? It will be just go up, pluck one in your table, do the same exercise, eliminate your top 2, but don't preempt it, knowing that, oh, let's take out these 2 because they'll be the easiest to take out, all right? I want you to go through the same process because I won't be here the next time you do this. You'll have to figure this out, all right? So replicate it. Because I may not be at your division level, your department level. So when you look at your metrics and the things that you're measuring at the core of your schools, okay, you may have to do this with your teams. So get them to think, all right? So just like you're going to do the process completely fresh. We have a couple, I think we have 5 areas that we have dots that you have more than like 4 dots. Go grab those for your tables. We'll give you pieces of paper. We want to keep these because this is our
All right, you have to do them all now.
Oh, yeah, we can. Just not to break the rules.
That's it, the merit.
That last one.
Let me collect your first round. Now you can't get started until you have the paper, right? It's innovation.
Budget process, budget planning process.
Appreciate the help.
All right, all right. In the markers, what do we call this one? Frugal spending and effective saving.
All right, so again, make sure you define.
What do you want to call it?
Define.
The other tables get very manual.
Multiplying or something?
Yes, yeah.
Fiscally responsible planning.
Efficient resource alignment.
There we go. Woo!
Something like that. What does efficient mean? Does finance mean? We give it their treatment to this, we better pick it all apart.
No, then it's
not going around. But still, we're going to be able to find. Is that right? What is efficient?
Not wasteful with materials, people. Where are the key resources? We
No, I think it's right.
Wasteful with people resources, internet, material resources.
Planning, right? Efficient resource planning.
We'll come back to that.
So part one up again.
Empowerment.
Neither is my writing. It's strategic planning too, to match what we're trying to achieve. We align the dollars with what we're trying to do.
Strategic decision making around
Goal. It's educating and empowering people to take on leadership roles, and then it's also kind of more succession planning, building talent for everyone. So you have a strong depth of leadership.
What if strong personal alignment? So that's the definition. So what factors contribute to that success?
Increasing the number of
I was just going to say, I'm not trying to be circle-ish, but Jeff, you're good at this. You're only besides chasing us down, telling us to get itemized receipts. And
Start with Rick.
yeah, because Rick's got some really good things.
Let's start with Rick. What have you done to be efficient with the resources and save money?
We're already discussing.
You said I got this staff, I need more guys
Yeah, I
on
mean,
the
it used
ground.
to be you only had
So we aligned our resources. We took some.
But you aligned your resources with an end goal in mind. Is what you're doing. Yeah, you said it. I'm going to say.
Well, that's the
So I had a metric with a training scorecard and held your staff accountable.
Well, see,
Is that your Greenbelt project? Yeah. That was really good.
Well, how is this scorecard?
Is it about, I think it's just because it communicated quality of schools throughout the system.
But how is it reducing costs?
Because people are going to work harder and
We reduced our,
give more.
I mean, are you,
your people costs.
so you're reducing the amount of people who go to this meeting because the quality of the meeting is going up?
I also went to well, we did it with their training. Actually train on
Engaging with staff.
classroom.
Right, so all that is increasing the quality of training. And but what about the
Will that keep hiring
resources?
Tuesday through Saturday?
So the dollars you create up.
So it still falls under aligned resources, right?
So that'll.
It's just realignment.
Anything else?
We also saved some dollars that might go into instruction, so it wasn't just a net.
Let's talk about the gas savings. So did you bid out?
We had a couple companies that priced it for us. Give us an example of opportunity cost the year before, what it would have been. So we don't have an idea of how it would see this one.
So when you say people,
Without, gas with other companies, we buy the service.
You have windows, you're good.
We buy a bunch of gas. For a low price, more a price. Anticipating that price is going to go up, so we buy it cheap. And then we
So they can be more efficient than we actually have
what else?
No.
They tap into the gas
gas lines. So they use the We Energy gas lines, pay a fee to do that.
Right, but they do more.
I think we're much better about sharing our own effective practices rather than going outside specific to
Anything else from the Rick Center?
budget for that.
Solar panels, is that helpful? That's saving it?
We should have been way over budget.
Yeah, it all depends on how much it costs to install. They're all different. Turn it doesn't.
When we have visitors.
Actually, we used to do something, it's like, where you can set your rate and say, okay, this is.
Could you even just put a factor on there as being proactive decisions versus reactive decisions?
Just so you know.
I mean, I'm just thinking even like by going to the 25-year budget or 25-year planning.
Initially, we only go.
We know what's ahead of us and we're being
That way,
proactive.
that's a big enough bill.
Proactive is just a shout.
Decision. 10,000 is 10,000. So let's do it at all. That's what we did this.
I'm even thinking
Now he has a trouble for
train more staff,
yeah, resource alignment.
gonna say the word.
We made a decision. We cut resources in other areas, so we can afford that.
We've identified signature.
Yep.
Have support area. Identification.
That's resource alignment for those things that will get us. What's the goal? How we gonna get there?
I'd also say that we have a clear process to help with the alignment. Green belt.
So we're
We're gonna say greenbelt, but I think it's zero-based budgeting. We've done it for multiple years now. That was new to our district. Did you take some lumps on that?
not bad, but there was something really new for the department. And the carryover is something new, so people aren't in spring just saying, oh, I'll use this budget money, I better go get something. So you put that carryover provision in and say, you don't have to spend it tonight. If you have 5,000, you want 10,000, get this $5,000, you want the $5,000 next year to get what you really need.
So now what?
On something.
Sorry, Jeff. Yeah, we're gonna need more money. We're gonna need more money.
We're aligning the resources so we can do that.
With the tiny little Monty.
Okay, so what did we hit on?
Still working on it.
So so you can turn this a little bit too. And this was one of the things I thought, maybe I should punch through a little bit harder. But one of the challenges that the district is having is what, when it comes to finances? Budget cuts, right? So what do we typically look at when we hear, oh, budget cuts? There you go. So what are the potential revenue streams that would position us to move forward with our agenda? Go beyond just the tax base. You've got to think beyond that, because if you say, well, the tax base contributes a majority of our resources, fine, but I'm going to knock it out. So now, how are you going to become more efficient? You can't keep cutting, and there's a point of no return where 80% of your efforts generates that, or 20% of your efforts get through that 80% return in efficiency. To get the next percent, it's a struggle. So you can't just keep cutting. So you've got to look at new revenue streams.
So that it's not about, so
What
now
are
I
those
feel like.
possible things? What are the partnerships you need? What are the innovations that need to happen in order for you to start acquiring or partnering to get some of those opportunities? that could be your focus here. So efficient resource alignment is good, but that only looks at the equation of how do we do what we do with what we have more efficiently. There's the, what other opportunities are there to increase the resources that allow us to do more efficiently?
What about
Snow cone, automation, popcorn, washing cars, whatever. Nothing's a bad idea, so list it out there because we've got to come up with the right nugget.
What about, I mean, do we have the capacity to offer online academies? The only reason why I'm thinking is because I'm looking at Spanish for my 8-year-old. We don't have it in my
Community
Spanish.
rec here is
That's what I'm
gold mine that
thinking.
you're not having.
Like, if we,
For
this is
general
kind of a
fund,
little bit like in the zone.
Yeah, but how much do you support them right now?
Staff, so.
It's a separate levy, what if they were, well, when you say separate levy, so they exact
the
separate.
operations.
So if we did 4K
It's still part of the
wraparound,
mill rate, but it's.
So part of the mill rate, what about staffing?
That's a community benefit.
4K wraparound, so any kind of, we couldn't gather any kind of
So
product,
if we-
4K wraparound.
We took drivers
Remember
out
our cares.
of the general fund budget in operations, and put it in the community. So that was a resource
There was a resource shift.
shift, but really a revenue generator.
So what you're telling me is the recreation department costs the school district zero other than the tax. Zero. So all personnel are funded through the tax. Okay, so if they generated a revenue stream, what would happen to that revenue? Okay, who pays for the field maintenance right now?
So we basically.
You're splitting that.
We can't put all of it.
But if they generated a new stream of revenue specifically for field maintenance, as a percentage, wouldn't that then be allocated directly to that? If it was used by. Well, no, so you're thinking within the box.
We're thinking within the law.
I'm thinking you're thinking within the box.
So like our pools, for example, we would have shut them down a long time ago.
Pools, yeah, I'm not talking about, so
Okay,
let's say,
fields.
You're like, you know, teacher, mentor.
Coca-Cola can't sponsor a field.
That's different.
So,
So what it did is you started down one path, right, you started down one path and you said, okay, there's a barrier there, but there's still dollars out there. How do we generate those dollars in a way that they can be utilized by the district? So, yes, you understand all the barriers, all the restrictions, but you still keep asking the question, but how? But how? Eventually you'll come up with, there's the solution, or there's an opportunity. It's not maybe the purest or best, but it is an opportunity for sure. We have a cell phone tower at WCTC on our property. You would put it on a corner part of the property, so areas where people aren't even going to notice that it's there. They'll just walk initially.
actually, we almost sold north
It's not about specific things.
I worked on it for about a year and a half, and the deals fell through at the end. It was TDS, I think it was TDS we were working with, said, no, we weren't over here. I don't know how to drum up that business yet, you know. A couple guys approached me at the time, and then I went after it, and had a contract, and never got signed.
Who do you have your cell phone services with in the district? I think that might be a good place to start.
That's one guy who would know where the holes are.
So the conversation, where did it start? It started here, where did it go? So it's that kind of opportunity, but if we think, well, we're doing pretty good right now, and this is what we're doing, that's good, but stop there, then we don't explore further.
I've always thought revenue generation, with a P card,
What about building usage? What about building usage? I don't know how much it costs us. Do we even know what that?
So we used to do if we have the right type of it'd be a long-term agreement.
Even professional development. They see our group really good. Our opportunities.
Your coaching model that you have right now, that is going to eventually be a revenue. So for those to be revenue generators, it's going to need some resources to get the inertia and the direction around it, and then once it does, the revenue comes back. So the priority rating is something that you do, but to get the idea out there, you've got to get it somewhere.
It's going to do some initial costs.
Is there a way to take care of the cost?
Or just for the,
Yes.
so they get a reason.
That's right. Oh,
We don't
so
expense
we should
any of
do
that to the general budget right now. What is that? We using it for direction. We had a base value. How much do we use it versus them? It's like our pools. I mean, we have some 75% even though we don't have a luxury of having we only pay 25% of that cost because we only use it 25%. That's a luxury. I mean, if we didn't go to the community ed rent program, we wouldn't have a we'd be cooking all these up. So, that's the fun idea that people. Some people abuse it.
Date not home.
We're good at
I like that one.
Shovel your driveway.
Some people are too small.
All right, let's wrap this up. Let's have a report on where you're at, so that we want to know.
All right, so what are we taking away?
We want to know.
This stuff away and start with this.
We want to know what your item was that you selected, what the definition, how you defined it, and what was the innovation. So you don't need to tell us. You don't need to tell us what the two things that contributed most.
Revenue generation.
But what we want to know is what did you come up with as a result of eliminating those or thinking differently about the topic you had? Does that make sense? So what we're looking at here is in the AI is we want to continuously improve. To get that to happen, we can't keep doing the same thing. Not that we're doing, I mean, we've only got a year behind it, right? But we want to keep that vision out in front. So if there's a new idea, we're going to have to plant the seeds somewhere. This is the place. All right? I know that you guys came up with something because I was at the table when it happened. So do you want to describe the process that you got here? So you're starting with what you chose, the definition, and what was the innovation or the idea that maybe is leading you a new direction. Okay?
Sure.
You've lost it.
We'll bring you back around.
We can tag team it.
Okay.
Okay. So we have the finance section.
Okay.
But out of that, we had efficient resource alignment.
Okay.
Definition was.
Sorry.
Glasses on.
At that age.
The definition was not wasteful. People, materials, and planning was underneath that. Subheadings. Strategic decision-making around goals and priorities. And we kind of focused on some of the things we're doing, the expense part of it.
Okay.
But as you discussed with us, we should actually think on the opposite side, the revenue part possibly. Not only what we're doing here, as you can see, aligning resources, establish strategic goals to align resources to save money, but how can we maybe gain some more revenue? We talked about community groups using the buildings more.
Cell phone towers.
Yeah, we talked about corporate sponsorships, educational foundation. Some districts have that to help out with auditorium upgrades and stuff like that.
With estate planning, if somebody has a lot of money and they don't have somebody to give it to, we can leave it out there. And it sounds silly, but somebody came to me about the turf idea just yesterday and said, hey, there are people that live in Menominee Falls that don't know what to do with their money when they die.
Make it help. We will help.
But obviously, some of the revenues that the business office has come up with the P card, the purchase card, getting that rebate back, and finding those creative ways. The corporate sponsorship is something that we're looking into as well with the board and seeing what it would cost for certain sponsorships.
Very good.
And a foundation would bring that avenue.
You're just looking at that? So you want to go next?
Give them
Ours
a spot
actually
to
is
put it.
really similar post-it note. It was savings for the district, and you defined it as one of the words to generate revenue or to add capacity for core mission. Key cards and the health insurance saving were the two ones that we threw out because, we've already used those. The Greenbelt projects and continuing to refine use of resources we saw as a continuing, and expanding training as a market niche within the region as a continuing.
Perfect. Very nice. So you're suddenly thinking a little different about how we become more efficient with our resources. Let's go after new resources, right? We can only cut so far. We can only reallocate or reposition ourselves so many times before we're cutting that same dime in different ways. What?
Slicing the grade.
Oh, slicing the grape. Yeah, you can only cut it so many ways. All right.
All right, we had operations and support services provide incredible personalized service. At first we defined, of course, we said custodial maintenance staff, food service, district office staff, EAs, administrative assistant, CE, and RAC professional technical. And we defined personalized service as providing customer care that generates positive customer experience and a net outcome that benefits the organization and student growth. When we went through and we generated our list and we took away our top two, we had still said that it was kind of a toss-up between established service standards as one of the things that we have done and we need to continue to make sure that we still continue to have, and then the feedback, the surveys and stuff that we do. I thought it was interesting. One of the outside of the box ideas that we were trying to come up with, somebody had brought up job shadowing across divisions, like having, administrative assistants actually job shadow the custodians, or having food service job shadow EAs, that sort of thing. There was some debate as to whether that would actually increase personalized service in the different departments or not. Some people thought it wouldn't. I actually think that there might be, it's uncontrollable. You wouldn't necessarily guarantee that there would be events that would occur during the job shadowing that would increase personalized service. However, I think that there are actually some things that could occur during that experience that could increase personalized service in their respective divisions.
So what we're doing right now is a good demonstration of that, right? You're thinking, you know what your job is. We started with finance. You generated part of the list, and then I said you can't do that. Because if you did that, you'd know the solutions. Or so you thought, right? As soon as you look at it from a different perspective, somebody who doesn't have that frame of reference, suddenly there's new ideas generated. So the parallel to that is if you followed somebody from food service or shadowed them for a day, you'd see their world different. You'd see the world differently from their perspective, and you'd experience that different, and you'd be able to say, look, this is what the students are feeling or experiencing. We need to address this. Because why? They've already got a particular lens they're looking through. Their food service. This is what we do. You're approaching it from a customer, okay, or some other venue. Right? And we should constantly be looking at how are we delivering it. When we're doing education or providing education, how are students receiving that? Right? That's what you do in your PDSA. You're constantly getting that feedback. Do we do that enough across the system? So a great observation, great opportunity. What'd you do? All right. We're not letting you off the hook, guys. Who's your narrator?
Yeah, very good. All right. We had all about standardized testing. So our definition was improving student achievement as measured by standardized testing. So we had, after making a long list, we eliminated and came up with really we need to be able to have those are lagging test results. So we need to have better control of short-term data. We need to really work hard on that. Get that is aligned to these college career readiness standards. So whether it's the common unit assessment or some other kind of short-term measure. We need to do that throughout the whole system and get that done.
Okay, so that was the opportunity. So let's take that a little bit further. How much data do you think you needed per day? Is it everything you continue to collect? Or do you think that we'll get to a point where it's certain things that predict to a greater extent? Remember the 80-20 rule. That predictability. If we're trending in the right way, we ought to get a result that trends the same way if those two things are correlated, right? So do we need to be able to, okay, we need everything. We've got to maybe narrow that down a little bit to know what are the essential pieces of data we need to collect at the essential pieces at different points in time. Not across the entire system, everything. We need certain markers. And you already know some for your act, right? So how kids are going to perform if they're performing at this level, how well that might predict their success later on. So we need to get to that point with the standardization as well. So when we say data, sometimes they get overwhelmed that we're so data-driven, which is great, but you got to do something with the data. So let's narrow that data thing. What is it that we're really looking at when we're collecting data? And I'm a data proponent. I'm all about need more data, but let's make sure we're collecting the right things. So, all right, this group here.
We can market our cognitive assessments to districts who haven't developed theirs yet and make some money.
Okay, so you're the revenue generator, right? And you do have great templates. You have great templates, right? So we're already looking at exploring conversations potentially around some of the work that you're doing with some of the smaller school districts that don't have the infrastructure to support it. So those are the opportunities that, yeah, they're in short-term revenue, but it is an opportunity. All right, this group, you're our final group. There's the pressure. She gave the look. She is.
All right, so we have leadership opportunities for staff in all areas and at all levels. Our definition is increasing the number of opportunities for both formal and informal leadership. Things that we're doing today is depth and consistency of training, quality tools, distributed leadership, risk-taking is encouraged, interest in talent beyond job descriptions, experts in-house, opportunities to share work. The three that we had, we actually challenged ourselves, so we took off three. So we said depth and consistency of training, and quality tools, and experts in-house. So what now? Hiring seasoned teachers and staff. Leadership is tied to evaluation, outside training, but then a little bit more grassroots, so cross-training and succession planning, relying on mentor opportunities, interns, transparency of ideas, and then rewards for team and servicing to others. So instead of personal job performance, but educating and sharing ideas across.
Right, right. Pretty exciting. So you generated that last set after you took the 3 on?
Yeah.
Wow, that's great.
I know.
Wow. I did expect 1 or 2, but wow. All right, you guys get the start. Okay. You get this. Yeah. I didn't know there was one, right? Bring it out.
We would have tried that.
I did not set an expectation. Okay, because I knew that we have great achievement. When you look at our core, right, what we're measuring, how many successes that you generated tonight. Right? Think about the accomplishments this year across the system. It's pretty amazing. Okay? Pretty amazing. What you've done is started to identify what are the things that can be replicated to ensure continued success. Those things are raised right up. Okay, we have 10 of them identified right here. Okay, in addition to that, we know how to accelerate some of those even further. Things that once we took off, what were the key things that made the difference? We identified some new things. Okay, that's our opportunity for growth, for innovation, for new goal setting as you enter back into your collective groups to think about what are we going to do differently next year to get an even better result. We're not giving anything up. You're not going to be told you can't do the 2 things that you should be doing. But what you will be asked to do is now think beyond that. You're getting a result already. How do you continue to ensure that that result continues to move upward? That's what we want to embrace as a team, that continuous improvement. You're thinking differently. The test for validity is here, and there's a number of questions on the table. We're not going to go through the full test, but as you go through this with your teams, do the statements that you described, that we defined, okay? Do those statements describe where we want to be in the future? Right? Do we want to continue to maintain where we're at, or we want to project ourselves moving forward? So as you define this and say, yeah, strong collaborative leadership is a value of Menominee Falls School District. Why? Well, if we have great leadership, we can continue this great path, this great journey that we're on to continuous improvement. And the more visibility we get, the easier it will be to attract new faculty and new staff and new leaders to our district. Because it's a struggle. It's a dog-eat-dog world out there, right? How many faculty did you lose this year? Christian, how you took?
What day is today?
25 teachers.
25.
Staff is hard because...
Let's just stick with the teachers. 25. How many of them retired? Were due to retire? 5. Okay. Those 5 are holes now in the system. All right. You knew they were coming, they were retired, but they're holes that you have to plug and fill. Is that a struggle? How many applications did you get for the 5 spots?
We're very blessed.
Okay. But why? What are we doing right that's attracting, right? What are we doing right that's making our jobs easier so you're not investing the amount of time to attract people and quality candidates? All right, great observation. Once we get them trained, they're gone, or the potential is gone. So what are we missing up here that would keep people?
Opportunity for advancement.
Opportunity for advancement. What else? Do we not have a goal to be a desired institution of choice, a great place to work? Should that be a core opportunity or a core metric? Right? Could that not be? And if we were desired, we could train them and we could know that they're going to stay if we could provide them the right opportunity. And you know what? And if they leave, we know we have a pipeline of talent coming. We're not going to have to beat bushes. Okay? That people are lining up. Hey, when do you have the next opening? I want to know. That's the culture you're shifting to. All right? You have that visibility already. Okay? People are talking. So how do you create it so that people don't want to leave? Okay? And not that anyone wants to leave. It's competitive. Okay? It's a competitive market. So, do the statements challenge and inspire us to move forward? Okay? Remember, we don't want to become complacent. We don't want the rest of the world to catch up, and we have a ways to go to be in the front. Okay? So how do we ensure that we're moving in that direction, and how do we make sure that we're not, becoming too comfortable with what we have? Okay? We're blessed. You have great people. You have young leaders. You have very talented infrastructure, but you don't want to lose that. We don't want to rest on that. Do these statements connect to the organization's vision and alignment? So you have 2 tests with this. One is, does it currently connect? And also, if it doesn't connect, should it? In other words, is the vision too small? Or the mission too narrow? Or, if it's fine, then is that thing that we've identified as being important a great place to work? A desired place to work? How do we get that to be part of our goal or our core? Do these statements align to the values, the scorecard, and the board expectations? Okay. Faith just brought up a great opportunity. Hey, we don't think about the retention piece. Should we have a retention part of our scorecard? Okay. Should we be looking at that? We have a lot of young leaders in the organization, and a lot of potential leaders. How do we provide them the right kinds of opportunities so that they can continue to grow within the district? Okay. And let's face it, not everybody will. Okay. Some people are going to look beyond the speed of acceleration for advancement. That's okay. You don't stop investing in them, okay? Because we want to replicate what we're doing. Are these relevant pieces for determining performance? So what we've identified, we all have performance metrics aligned to them. Are they relevant? Does it predict our success over time? Certainly we can say, yeah, finance, if we become financially upside down, or our bond rating changes, or we just can't fund external programs, we have an issue. But where are we aligning the resources correctly, and does the scorecard provide us the information we need to ensure that the right resources are where they need to be placed? right? So that's your next validity check. We have a great scorecard. Are the things in the right boxes? And do we have the right resources to support it? Are we ready to move in this particular direction? Okay, so we had some great pockets of innovation. Are there opportunities to make those action steps? Are there opportunities to try those, to test them, to PDSA them, to figure out, will this help as an accelerator? Is it a new next step in our process of continuous improvement? We'll consolidate this and put it together in a way that we can bring it back out to the divisions, right? How do you want to do it, divisions, senior leadership, to figure out what are the opportunities that we've arrived at here tonight that really could take some legs. And I know this, your table, you already are thinking, I know I'm going to do this. I got this, I'm on this, right? We've come up with some things simply because we removed what we already were doing. And then finally, what's missing? What haven't we thought of? So the revenue stream, you had it out there. You've thought of it from finance, but we got an idea from which table? Well, you were already finance. There was another table that had it. This table, I think, had a finance, right? Had another idea for how can we generate new revenue, right? If we threw that out there as, here's our goal. We want to identify new sources of revenue. I'll bet everyone in here could come up with, I bet as a group, collective group, we could probably come up with 15 easily new ideas. Now, not saying they're all valid, not that they're all good, but we could come up. I mean, we heard popcorn, we heard car washes. Okay, that's fine, but I think we can do better. We can dig deeper. All right, but we've got to put it out there as, yes, this is something we really want to do.
Donkey basketball game.
Pardon? What was that one?
He said basketball. He said donkey.
And the new BF floor.
So your test for validity, now here's the segue. All right, so the next time that we meet is the 25th. All right, so the board has its meeting. We're going to go through KT. This is that validity study and what we for the validity test. And some of these metrics we're going to come back to. So how do you weigh what's important as you move forward? How do you set those standards and expectations? And then how do you measure and create a tool that you can use as a standard across your system? So when you come to budget decisions or things that might impact two conflicting opportunities, okay? What's the tool that you use to ensure that you take out the emotion and actually get a good result, okay? And that's the tools that the team, senior leadership team is going to learn. KT, we're going to actually apply it as a board when we come back in 2 weeks.
But not on this.
Not on this. No, not on this process. No.
We're working on curriculum?
Well, we're actually going to do something a little, because we want you to learn the tool. Yeah, we want to learn the tool so that we apply it correctly. Then we can apply it in the system, okay? So if we apply it within the curriculum, as an example, we could prejudice the process simply because you've already done that. Right? That makes sense. Okay? So you try something that's not, so that you can get tested on the system, you learn the system, and then you can apply it across. So, what do we do at the end? Besides congratulate and celebrate, what's the thing that we close out with? Woohoo! No. Oh, there we go. Plus delta. What did we like about the process? What went well? Right? We can't just walk away from this all. So feedback is important, but also this is great work. The recognition of all of the success that you've had this year is an important step in the process. If we just did this and we couldn't recognize, hey, this is good work, why did we do it? Okay. We borrow a pen. I don't want a red pen.
Where are all these numbers going?
We're going to consolidate the data or what we generated. We'll create the list. We're going to bring this back to both the leadership team and to the board. Okay? Here's some of the things that we think are opportunities. We still need to validate. This is the direction, and this is then we have the resources to do something with them. In the meantime, there were some great little innovations that could happen fairly quickly. I think that's where the leadership team is going to say, you know what, I'm going to try this. This is something I want to include, as long as there's reasonable amount of investment made. So the PDSA cycle, we get a report out at the end. That's their process. That's our process. We want to keep the momentum moving forward, and I do think there's some great ideas here.
What's the time frame for getting back to us and how we're doing?
We're gonna work hard. Okay, time frame. Pat, what do you think? Time frame.
Well, within 2 weeks, we need back to start. And then during the course of September, Jeff and I are going to meet with all of the division leaders and the building principals with Joe on the scorecard pieces. What I'm thinking is we're also going to take these and refine our goal statements based on some of the nuances so that it actually embeds it into those goal targets. And then we can identify what other metrics may be missing off of the scorecards. We could probably do that. Probably we'd have to do it by.
We'd like to get it done. We talked about this so that the teachers and the building principals have it in the schools.
I think that was our
We were saying
conversation.
September 15th.
Yeah.
But that's not the intent of our next meeting. Our next meeting intent is to go forward. So we can't do it.
So that's the first part of your board meeting, or that's the entire meeting?
That's what our workshop is supposed to be.
Well, the question is, what?
She wants to use the KT process to prioritize the
curriculum.
curriculum.
That'll work.
Because we have to keep moving on it, or we're not going to be able to get everything in the books on time for the kids and figure out what the buildings are going to be doing.
That's fine. Yep, that's fine. So the KT process, you're going to learn the process. You're not going to learn the theory behind it. So immediately you're going to walk away with the tool. Okay? So you can apply the tool immediately. We're going to not use the curriculum initially to teach the tool.
Yeah, but that's where I think we got to talk about.
We need to
Okay.
talk about it.
All right, so we guys have an opinion on the 25th, and we had an opinion.
All right, so let's.
And they're not the same opinion.
Let's get that together. Okay, so that's fine. All right, so where are we at?
Plus Delta, what are we doing?
So if you're going to do this, can you replicate it? So within your teams, okay, what's important on your scorecard, in your divisions, in your schools, okay, can you replicate it? What worked?
It was important to have diverse viewpoints in the room.
Okay.
I like that it's a funneled approach. So it takes a scattergram and then cycles it down to a couple levels.
Okay, so a bit deeper dive is another way?
All right, well, it starts with observations and ideas, and it focuses into, concepts and action. So it's like a sieve, right?
Okay.
I appreciated not having it starting with the data, because it really did open it up for
Okay.
us to.
Okay.
Our current goals read flat, they read directly to the pillars. These read more innovative, but they're still hitting the pillars.
Okay.
So I think it'll actually refine the goals to speak to more passion behind them as opposed to the flat statements.
More action for.
Right.
I like the expansion of what's going well versus let's look at what's not going well and try to fix that.
Yeah, talk about that a little bit. Did you feel as though we're walking away not having identified opportunities for improvement?
No, that was the nice thing about it is you identified what's going well and then we're working on accelerating that now.
Do you feel more energized about what we've accomplished and moving forward?
Yeah.
The tendency when you do problem solving from a SWOT analysis is you end up getting caught up in the trenches, and eventually it becomes a blame game. Why something didn't happen, as opposed to what can we do differently? Okay. Great observation is that shift. So
Can we draw deltas too, or are these all pluses?
right now we're doing pluses. to shift over? Improvement, opportunities, something to do different.
I mean, I think the counter to the last statement is there's still an element of follow-up. I mean, I get the whole, positive thing, but if you overweight one and underweight the other, that's not necessarily the balance completely shifted. So if it was 80-20 last time, it's now 20-80. No, it's 100 and 0-100, right? So if it was 80-20 data,
okay,
or 70 data, 30 dialogue, it's now 0 data, 100 dialogue, other than a couple charts on the wall.
Okay.
So I think there's a balance in it, depending on what the goals is for this review period.
Perfect.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So I think you have to have, forget what the intent of this meeting was, but what's the goal for the quarterly meeting?
Okay.
Is the goal just to throw out ideas every quarter, or is it to balance the two? That would be my question.
Maybe missing the things that need to be fixed.
Yeah, I mean, and it's not recycling downward.
No.
But like I said, if we were maybe 70 data with 30 dialogue as far as bullet points, and I did this, but I'm still working on this, that gave me more insight from the field on what they're struggling with and where we can talk about it.
Okay.
This glossed over all of that and turned it into assuming that everything's pretty better than average. So I just think there's a blend, and I think we talk about goal setting. I think this meeting that we need goal setting, and or are we balancing? I don't know. That's just my opinion.
Okay, so this is a step in a process, right? So we have data. You have quarterly reports that you could draw from. Even this is generated based on those quarterly reports, even though we didn't look specifically at data. You have a gut feel of how we're doing on each of these metrics based on at least through the third quarter.
You assume that I have.
All right, that's fair. Okay, that's fair. So what we've done is we've looked at a different approach to the strategic planning, which is the next year. How are we going to keep the thing moving, all right? So we make an assumption that we've got some good momentum on things, right? But if you were to say, based on the last year's data, what's not working? And you might say, well, we didn't accomplish this. Is the data strong enough to suggest that we really didn't accomplish it? Because there's so many things that are lagging indicators that the data isn't giving you the full picture. So if you make a decision solely on 1 year's worth of data, you may not have everything you need, and you may have taken a corrective action that takes you in a different direction. So what this does is it validates the good things that we're doing, okay? And it says, so what are we going to do to continue that acceleration if we couldn't do these things? Okay, so it forces your group to think differently about the next steps. It doesn't say we're eliminating anything. What we're doing is building on the momentum that we have. If we started with the data, and this was the risk, and Pat and I talked about this a bit. She's like, well, I'm going to hand this out, and they're going to be on tape. I'm like, let's not do that, because what will happen is the focus would be on the data. What does the data tell us? And we would spend so much time trying to analyze the data, we wouldn't have generated the ideas. So you're right in that there's a risk here, but you're right in there's a risk in doing one and not the other. Okay? But if we understand the process that this is one step to the next step, so the KT around curriculum or whatever that next step might be, the validation of the data that we had for the fourth quarter, which you're going to walk away with, and the realignment of the metrics to make sure that we're actually looking at the right things, making the right decisions around the data, gives us now 2 years worth of data to propel us even further. Okay? So it is a number of things that are moving in 3 hours. We're not going to get it all, okay? But we will over time. Right? So I think absolutely valid. Okay, it was the issue of what were the goals that we wanted to get out, and I think we have some right next steps for the team to consider. And so now, what does the data say should be the direction? And then the KT process validates and further tests that. Okay. Yeah.
This is kind of a wet blanket, but I think we need, when we do this again, we need to define, because the board's expectation of this meeting was the presentation of what happened this year. It was. And the expectation was to walk away with the baseline for next year's scorecard. And that's not what happened.
We're gonna-
So,
yeah.
but we got,
Okay. All right.
it's our direction, and that's what we wanted to happen. And this is all good. Everything that came out of this was excellent. But this is what happened in the meeting, which means we're going to be in the meeting. Talk about it. We've got the charts. But in fairness, do you want us to sit and read the charts without any explanation behind it? It won't take long. Am I wrong?
No, I think that's part of, if you want to talk continuous improvement, transparent, all the good things that are posted up there. Expectations are, you know, I'm at very faith. I came in, I got a packet delivered to my door, so I was expecting a shorter, tighter version of last time, with some great insight and some hoorahs and a couple, man, I still got to work on this, but I'm hustling, which is all I really care about, I mean, frankly, because I know the people are here to do it. So to me, I just want to hear. I don't want to look at a piece of paper so much as I want to hear. I mean, I can jewel with a book, but at the end of the day, I want to hear, you know, two yays, and I'm still working on it. You know, so I guess it's just different. You know, it's more. I'm used to more business-like stuff. Okay, so that I came in here expecting to go through the book, and we haven't even cracked the book. So it's just difference of how the meeting was set. So, and again, I think at the base point, I think it's all good. I just think we gotta pick a lane on. You know, you're either gonna you can't go feast or famine because they're both important. So again, I just think it's a balance in how we structure it. I don't want to double the meetings either.
Right. No, and for us, I mean, we have to be able to answer to the public to anything negative that comes up in these scorecards. And not going over them does not help us be able to address that in a positive light. And that's why it's important, so that we know, yes, you realize that this happened into your building your school, but here's what we're doing. And discuss, we trust you, but we need to be able to nod if somebody comes and says, well, this happened or what happened, and we should be able to say, yes, but they're doing this and this.
And maybe that's wrong of the board. Maybe the board shouldn't be at that level. But you still have to have, you know, if I go in the meeting at work, I got to be able to throw out a few sound bites that are more than just, well, we're continuing to work on quality improvement and our transparent leadership skills. I mean, you know what I mean? So I think there's a balance there. That's my only doubt. I don't know, anybody else, any other thoughts, or what you thought, or what we thought? Because I think that's just one guy's opinion. But I love what we're doing, right? I mean, it's good stuff.
No, right.
It's all good stuff.
And you guys, I think we've got a gentleman Rob over here that we're not using. This guy's amazing wordsmith. Gosh, you know, seriously. Yeah, he seriously.
Oh, he's
came
kidding.
up with this
He's
stuff.
getting on board. Okay, come on. We only have a door this, I'm just kidding.
I mean, it's great, it was awesome. It's what we need.
All right, that's good feedback. Others?
Can I just go back to the positive
Okay.
note side? For me personally, going through this process, having just been with Student Group last week and hearing them say the process of continuous improvement is nothing more than learning how to innovate differently. This to me that's exactly what they were talking about, because we took those processes and we said, if you're taking away those things you're doing now, how do you think differently to keep moving forward? And I kind of looked at the first round when we did it, okay, we took away our top two. So in my head, that's, okay, maybe we've tried those things and they've shown us some improvement, but now we've plateaued. So now where do we go next? That continuous improvement is really how do you innovate differently when those things that you've tried or worked or didn't work are now gone. So I thought that was really an in-depth validation of kind of what we were working on in Student Group.
And we didn't talk before this. So.
I think sometimes the conversations get a little isolated into different pockets. I mean, Raymond, Rick, and I were having a conversation about the injury. What's the
Workman's comp.
Yeah, workman's comp. And he gave me some insight that that's good for me to know. But then if the rest of the board hadn't heard that they're looking at things, or they're using the cameras to look at actual employee behaviors and to be able to counsel employees on better behaviors. And, if that was shared out to a whole group, that could have been, sometimes I think we miss things by doing it in kind of segmented.
And many things that might already be going on, but aren't a part of the discovery process.
And you're right, the shifting of items from one table to the next, each table added something, didn't it? So it's a different perspective, and part of this wasn't to be exhaustive in the list, it was to demonstrate that, you know what, I need that diversity to be able to see this from a different perspective. Okay, so you added to the previous list. Okay. I'm not sure how to capture that. Which side would you like that? So there's value in the diversity, which we got. There's also value in the discussions. How do we capture that? Okay.
But that's something that you could put in your 45-day report, and we could all see it.
Anything else?
Another thing that, well, it's really just about this meeting. It's not about what's discussed. It's about the format. And the only thing I was going to say is the other thing that would be nice to hear in these types of meetings is things that work well somewhere that we're extrapolating other places. And I don't know, I mean, again, given this format, that's not what comes out of here, but I know in the past there's been a lot of, way in the past, there was more siloed tests and then siloed results and then slow rollout. And I think we're way well beyond that, but I think there might be some things that I wouldn't know are going on that could be really exciting. You know what I mean? And the question is how they go high on that. I don't know if there's things like that going on either. Because they're not really defined here. They're kind of, so that's just that's a question I have in my head that would really be exciting to hear about. So, but it wasn't a report out, it was more of an idea generation, so I guess.
I think one of the things that we still have to figure out, when we did the 45-day report outs, we struggled, part of the feedback was it's all feedback and not enough dialogue. And then how do we capture the blend between the both? We've also talked about, the board has requested regular updates on the regular board meetings. Part of what we're thinking about is actually doing a strand all the way through the year, and some of those, here are the innovations, so that the whole board gets that. And then on the quarterly reports, it ends up being that regular coming back to what's working, so that the data isn't, it's less and less of a question by the time we get to the end of the year, because the board understands that predictive data. So, and that ends up being part of that design.
I mean, we do postmarks quarterly, same thing.
Right.
And it's all numbers, but it's also people are forced into one page, and you can't change one word. It's like 6 lines and about a dozen. 3 goods, 2 neutrals, and oh my gosh, I gotta fix this. So it's that balance in it.
Agreed.
Good. Anything else? All right, you want to talk a little bit about...
And this won't take long, but if I can get help passing out.
Reading is very important.
No, it's actually more reference material so that you've got the comparative. Okay? There's not a thing in this book that's going to be new to you. Here. When we get into a quality organization and the board looks more deeply.
Double the reading.
Another.
We did 3 at this table.
I got it.
And the board looks more deeply at the contents. What we're predicting by next summer is we're going to be applying for the first round of the state level reflection and feedback. things that they're going to be asking everybody within the organization about, and this is going to be the piece that ends up being the grounding processes. So that's on the left. If you take a look at the first couple of pages in this document, we captured some of the bright spots as the evidence components. The data charts on the wall are in there, the board policy. It reflects part of the progress made during the course of the year. If you look at the work tonight and you look at page 9, leadership went through and actually identified by pillar in advance of tonight at a previous meeting some of the key sound bites. If you look at page 11, it speaks to our goal statements. What we came up tonight are actually a stronger, more robust, reflects the passion, but hits some of those same key targets. One of the data pieces that I do want to point out, and it relates directly to some of the hard discussions that instruction has had, go back to page 7. Top of the page shows the longitudinal data on the number of transcripted credits we've had for our students and the growth trend. If you look at the bottom, that's how many kids we had in fashion design prior to the program being eliminated in 2005, 2006. So we had roughly around 30 to 40 kids involved in the transcripted credit program in that program design. So if you look at a class size of 37, you either had 2 really small sections, which is what we had, right? Take a look at what happened with the first year of implementation of the Healthcare Academy and the volume of kids who now, with the same level of staffing, what's happened with access to the post-secondary. Those are hard, programmatic decisions. It represented part of that painstaking shift. That's part of the evidence that it was the right direction to head, okay? So that's really what this document is going to continue to reflect over time. And the rest of it, obviously, are the core processes. If you take a look, Jeff, I need the red documents. While he's getting those, the yellow booklet on your right in the back is the fourth quarter reporting. What we've done in summary, we've got the summary sheet giving you the red, yellow, green on the end of the year projects. And on this document, what we're going to do differently for the fourth quarter, for the quarterly reports, we're going to reference it to the goal. We're going to keep the metrics consistent across the building. Suspension is going to be reported every quarter. On-target reading and math is going to be reported every quarter. That's part of what we're trying to figure out in the formatting. This was really the first iteration. We had metrics jumping around because we really didn't have some of the common metrics in place. So as we talk tonight of making sure that we nail that down hard, that's going to be part of the iteration. But that's your summary report. Okay. This is the piece that's still in refinement, but is going to be critical. Look at the red document first that Jeff just handed out, the burgundy. First page is our goals, and it's reflected by pillar. We'll do some of the refinement of the language off of the feedback tonight. Page 2 reflects why it's important. It sets the context for both the community and the staff. The change research indicates you're not going to get much leverage if people don't understand why they're doing what they're doing. Some of the whats will continue to add to the list based on the evidence tonight. If you look at page 4 and 5, this was actually our scorecard for the year. And the results and where we fell by category. By next year at this time, we'll have these for every building and every division with the baseline data, okay? Because by that point, we'll have all of it scored. Does that make sense? This actually reflects mine. It's the macro scorecard for the system. And that's the part that we're missing any of the evidence, or items that we'd be refining. This booklet is the working document of what we believe are the entry to the year scorecards. The scaling, we're shifting a little bit because we still have to do some refinement on the service measures. But we have in here everyone's for every level. And this is what we would be communicating to the buildings. We're going to get the refinement done by September 15th is the target, so that the principals can review it with all of the staff members. I'm going to show at the opening in-service mine, so that people get a context of how that would work, and then say division leaders and building leaders would be doing it by the middle of the month. Okay? So that's really what this document reflects. The target for next year is, if the summary, the cumulative is a meets or higher, they would be eligible for that 0.5. Okay? So
on this one, we'll be updating. We just received the ACT yesterday.
Yeah.
So we don't. Some of these metrics are tied to that. So.
And when we make at this time of the year, that one will always be a struggle for us, because we're always getting the data right as we're hitting the start of the school year.
How do we read this one on page 4? Under people, improved employee engagement results. Last year's score was 4.5.
Right.
We're down, so it's in yellow.
Yep.
Right. How does that work?
But when we look at the scaling, on any given year, you're going to have, we actually mid-year, we had a higher score. We actually, from the start of the year, we do employee engagement twice a year, December and May. We went up by almost half a point. And then by May, we went down, and the surveys went out just as the employee compensation letters were going out. Okay? We were dealing with layoff. It will always be that way, because the timing of the employee satisfaction survey is December and May.
Maybe we should change that then.
Well, but it's a range. It's 401 to 390, you got a 10 feet away.
Right. You're going to have some normal variation, because you have different people responding, and that actually is going to be part of the process.
Is there any consideration to moving the second one? I mean, if you always do what you've always done, you're always going to get what you've always done. So every second part of the year, you're going to get hammered because you're handing out non-renewals and compensation plan and healthcare plan changes.
Yeah, and could very well be, Faith. We also believe that this was a radical shift, and it will likely settle in more than it did during the course of this year. So that piece of it, we can shift the timeline if we feel like it's most appropriate. We just believe that it ends up balancing it out, so that we're not necessarily doing October but we could shift that. We just believe that it'll settle in more as the timing goes on. But it did. We went up a lot, and then we came down almost the same amount that we went up by the end of the school year. Okay? So these are the documents, and Joe and I, we debated it, and part of the purpose of not doing it is to not get buried just in the data indicators at this time of year. So we'll continue to have those levels of refinements. From here, Joe is going to be facilitating the KT process with the board. The leadership team is going to be learning it. So in the fall, we've got the KT process set up for all of the division leaders. What I want you to do, though, you guys, it's not just about Joe facilitating. Remember, the purpose of this is to make sure that you can replicate this in that next level down, and then they can replicate it in the grade level meetings. So the tools should be able to penetrate all the way through. All right? Any questions?
And we, on page 1, the quality, graduate a high percentage of high school students within 4 years. Gary and definitely had a conversation about this out in the hallway, because I thought graduating somebody meant it happened in this class this year, because I remember Gary had a year where 100% of students graduated. But we don't see that, and that in itself is a celebration, these students. And if I remember correctly, Mary Zengrad told me there was only like 2 this year that didn't.
Right.
The general public doesn't understand what this within 4 years means. And we do, even at 97, 98%, which even goes with what's on the chart, that is a high percentage.
It is. It's
among
among the highest in the region.
Right. So I think this goal makes it sound like we're not. I would like to change the wording on that, continue to graduate a high percentage.
Yeah.
Instead of just because this makes it look like, we're floating around at 80, 60.
I think that's what the goal is. This is really just what the focus of the goal is. The actual goal is.
But this is a
like
public
that.
document, so I think we need to make this
We'll
sound a
continue,
lot better.
yeah, and we will. And part of what I'm thinking is we'll actually take part of the core targets tonight and actually shape some of the goal statements so they read more closely to part of your, the headers on the pages. So in more of that format. We won't have 8 of them, we'll have, keep it tight.
And I understand, Jen explained to me that this chart out here ties to what DPI tracks, and that's 40, and I understand that.
Yeah.
But still, even at 97, 98% of those kids, that's a high number.
Well,
So
and
we need to celebrate that.
Jake is right. Our high schools graduate among the highest in the region. Our completion rate is higher than most in the region. So it is a great celebration. Any other comments? So when this is further developed mid-September, everyone will get it. Okay, and again, part of the challenge with this is it's going to stay a work. Last year we didn't have this. This year we do. Next year it'll be that much better. So it'll continue to get better as we go. But these steps, I think, are pretty significant. And I think the ability to actually even get to this point, I can tell you, I don't think there's 5 school districts in the Midwest doing this right now. So I think that part is a huge celebration. So, good? All right, so the 25th, Joe will be facilitating the KT process with the board on those prioritization areas, and then we know what we're heading into. I'm going to actually set dates. If we can't find dates in an afternoon, I'll be honest with you, and I apologize in advance. We may have to pull a couple of evenings with Joe, if that's the only thing that he can give us, and actually put you guys on round. Pull all the elementary principals together as a group and go through the scorecard lineup so that we're clear by mid-September and everyone's got the right metrics or what we believe are the next right metrics. Okay, so we'll try to keep it as tight as we can, but if we can't, we may have to schedule some meetings. Okay? All right, can we take an opportunity to thank Joe? One of the things that's the beauty of this, we're developing this national prototype. And Student Group has been a strong partner, but they've also been an equally strong learner so that they can help their partners because they're dealing with huge partners that we're really the prototype for that. So Joe's been a great sharer. Student Group has been a great sharer, so let's thank Robin also. And board members, thanks for the continued support. The free conversation is what it should be around continuing to make us better. We're better than we have been, and we're going to continue to get better. So it's all the way that the conversations and the dialogue should push us to the next level. So thanks everybody for the hard work today. Tomorrow's the backyard barbecue at 6:30. So I've given up on doing sign-up lists. You know the menu. If we have a hole, it's we didn't plan effectively. Okay, so it is what it is. I'm pretty sure no one will starve. Okay, so even if we have 100 bags of chips, it'll replace the 100 veggie trays we have one year. All right, so we'll see you all tomorrow night.
Bring our Speedos.
Gary took over my brand
Speedo.
So far I like it.
Speedo.
I won't buy anything. Because they won't. I like how they write. You know, they're all like good for him.
I'm sorry.
Not like